Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Ahmed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google, so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
How you doing, John?
Oh, there we go.
Good, how are you?
Still low, Nathan.
Sounds
You're a
clear to
little bit
me.
low here, Nathan. No,
What
you're
now?
clear, but you're low. Maybe, I don't know. Anybody else got an opinion?
What?
All right, before you go on, he sounds perfect on G+.
Just trying to throw me off, aren't you, Steve?
Oh, no, there you go. Okay, now you're loud and clear, Nathan, now.
You that's quiet.
You might have been talking a little bit lower.
No, it's you. You're not very close
Man
to your
sounded
mic.
a little low to me.
Steve that's low.
It probably is.
Hello anyway, everyone else in Discord, how you all doing?
We're doing good.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, good man. Yes.
Yeah, everyone else is at a reasonable level. It's just Steve that's really quiet. But that's no bad thing. Right, I'm going to turn you up, Steve. So if you do suddenly decide to get close to your mic, you'll blast everyone's eardrums out.
Steve never does that.
Never. So I've carried on the theme of the last couple of shows with the title of today's show. So after we discussed Simon Dan in yesterday's show, I decided to title the show Simon Dan Does Not Believe, or Dan Doesn't Believe. Today's show is You Do Not Believe. And I was inspired by
Nice.
Arwin's show. So Arwin was talking to the trolls, and they were all anti-flat earthers giving him grief. I was thinking, yeah, that's the people we're addressing, really, isn't it? We're kept well away from normies. So although we'd love to actually think we're appealing to the normie that comes here that's really keen to find out about how Earth is flat, yeah, they're kept well away from us. You'll be funneled here if you happen to stumble across the subject, perhaps, if I'm lucky. With a YouTube hat on, that is. So you don't believe in Coriolis. Go on, whoever that was, sorry.
I was just going to say, I was going to ask you if you was ever going to do an episode on all the heretical answers of heliocentrism.
By heretical, you mean what?
The refracted horizon, the conservation of angular momentum, and we don't see Coriolis. You know, the heretical answers, not the actual answers they give.
It's all heresy.
Oh, heretical as in a heresy. Sorry, I didn't know what the word meant for a moment. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I mean, isn't that what we typically do, though? we've normally got Arwin doing a pretty good job of throwing out the heretical answers, as you call them. But we're not getting globe Earth answers, and that's kind of the tact that it's how do you spin it back on the railroad onto the railroad tracks again. So, as far as I'm concerned, heliocentrism's come off the tracks, and for us to blow up the train effectively, it needs to be going full speed into the wall. And if it's off the tracks, because the globers, that they call themselves, actually anti-flat earthers, have dragged it off the tracks, knowing that they can slow it down and slow down the inevitable smashing into a wall and minimise the damage that will happen because they've pulled it off the tracks and it's slowing down when it smashes into the wall. Because as far as I'm concerned, in this analogy at least, if you haven't detected it already, I think there's a wall at the end of heliocentrism, and that train's going to smack into it eventually. And the anti-flat earthers...
It's like a runaway train.
Yeah, it seems that way. I don't think it seems that way. I think it is that way.
Hiya, guys. What I'm also finding a little bit strange is like other sources that are, explaining the Coriolis incorrect. I've been listening to your explanations of it, Nathan, and I've sort of got the basic gist of it now, of what it is. It's it's just an apparent deviation. It's not actually happening. But then the other day when you were speaking to that extremis, whatever it's called, I did look at that, and I got that article up as well on the National Geographic, and they're stating it in a false sense. And I've seen other references to it that aren't correct, and it's just strange. I mean, I've even found it on. I don't know how true it is. 10th might know a bit more about this. They even reference it when using the bubble sextant up in the air, that they're correcting for Coriolis, which they're not. They're probably making an alteration for the altitude and the speed of the plane. But I'm just finding it surprising how many other sources are getting it, also got it incorrect.
Yeah, and the benefits to heliocentrism, to have the double-speak contradiction, are obvious. So nobody corrects them. So it does take someone like us to come along and start pointing out that, okay, just because you can go to the National Geographic reference, read how Coriolis is described to occur, i.e. Earth turning beneath things that aren't attached to it, and then see that in the same exact reference they'll describe it not occurring at all. For whatever reason they give, they convolute it with the not actual drift. When I read it, because the guy who was asking me to explain it to him, Extremesis, was positioning it such that they're disagreeing with themselves. Well, yeah, they were, but they also weren't. They were just being a bit tricky with the description of Coriolis in that little box. So they're saying there is no effect to observe on the equator. Well, strictly speaking, that's true. There is no Coriolis effect to observe. Now, I'm not saying from a flat Earth, look, the globe's not spinning perspective. I'm saying, in the truest sense of the word, when you describe Coriolis effect, there is no actual effect on the equator or anywhere. Like there'd be no actual effect on the roundabout observing a ball moving straight. The effect is the not actual effect of it appearing to curve when it isn't. So strictly speaking, they're just being tricky with the words. Now I expected nothing less, but it was one of the reasons I didn't want to bog myself down in reading it when I know the contradiction like the back of my hand. The fact that National Geographic can be a little bit more clever about convoluting it were they to be held to task on it. They'd say, no, in that little reference, we're just being strictly factually and linguistically accurate when we say there is no actual effect at the equator, because there isn't. Coriolis is an illusion, like we explained above. Now, for your average layman that reads that, they read it and interpret it the way that Extremesis read it and interpreted it, which is perfectly understandable. Not correct, but understandable. Now, it's been done deliberately to be misinterpreted.
Yeah, that was very well said. Tricky.
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't know if they could get away with that interpretation, Nathan. That's a mutually exclusive when you name a place that isn't something when you're talking about what is.
I realise, but they've got to get the contradiction in somehow to negate the effect they're describing. And I just think that after I read it, National Geographic didn't do a terrible job considering they're trying to punt the globe. Now, was it accurate? No. Was it right? No. Were parts of it citable? Yeah. Parts of it were correct, because it's got to be. But it doesn't mean it doesn't contradict itself, and it doesn't mean they did a terrible job of contradicting themselves. They didn't do a terrible job of contradicting themselves. That's as good as a compliment I can give them.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, guys.
I can see that.
Good morning.
Just me again, Nathan, on that. 10th might be able to. I was just interested when I did see it in reference to the bubble sextant, and I presumed, well, they're obviously using the terminology incorrect because there is no Coriolis correction, but they do mention it in a few documents. I presume they're counting for movement of the plane in relation to the luminary, and calling it Coriolis correction when it's not actually that. Have you seen that, 10th? Have you come across that?
I can't see how it would be translatable. Maybe 10th man can fill me in, because if you're taking a sighting of a star and just measuring the angle, the moment you've got that measurement, you look at your chronometer, aka watch, and note the time. Because what you're going to do once you've got the angle, having set the tool up correctly and sighted the star and measured it at that point in time, is look at what piece of land it's above. Right? Well, you need the almanac for that. So you've got to note the time. So in the strictest sense of the word, if it was a heliocentric believing navigation book and it's detailing Coriolis, in line with the globe's actual claim of Coriolis, then they'd be describing the not actual deflection, i.e. the 15 degrees an hour movement in the luminaries. But who cares if you're noting a particular point in time rather than a difference between two times to get a Coriolis correction requirement in the first place? There is no requirement if you're noting the time for the sighting.
Are you actually getting a GP position when you're flying a plane? Are you trying to get your position in the plane that's moving? And is there some correction for that, which they're calling Coriolis, which it actually isn't?
Well, that would be incorrect in terms of both what you could correct for on the plane and what Coriolis is, because it isn't correctable, you rotating beneath something, unless they're asserting that the plane is going round and round in circles whilst making the sighting. Again, it just sounds to me like they're convoluting the use of the word Coriolis, and you probably correct based on you having read it and already assessed it for being just a correction for any movement in the planes of the aircraft. You know, when I say plane, I mean the rotation, the pitch, all of that. That's what I mean by the plane. What's that called? Positional information in 3 dimensions. I've forgotten the term for it.
Sound check.
Hello.
Say 10.
Nobody's
I've
telling
been
me.
saying hello. No one said anything.
Anyway, it would be a correction for that, I would assume, as you have already assessed it as being that, but only based on what you've told me. Definitely not a correction for rotating beneath things, unless the plane is rotating beneath something. Or it's claimed that the plane, which would have to be on the ground for it to be attached to the spinning reference frame, is looking at the drift in the stars. But it doesn't sound like that's the case, so it doesn't sound like it's a claim in line with actual Coriolis. Hope that answers your question, Wandek.
Yeah, it does really. But it's back to my original point. I'm just surprised how many other references are, referring to it incorrectly. From what you would call, trust them. Well, what would you call them? True. Who knows what true sources are nowadays? But I just thought I'd mention it. That I have come across it under the bubble sextant. It's in there if you have a look.
On the one hand, it's shocking. It's like, well, how can they be so contradictory? It's only shocking because it's contradictory. Normally in the next sentence, they'll contradict the last thing they said. And that's slightly shocking when it's from a reputable source. But by the same token, the same reputable sources are punting that we live on a ball flying through a sky vacuum. So it's kind of not that shocking. It's just obviously shocking because even anybody who's not here to punt the nature of Earth in terms of its flatness just reads it. And if they've got half a brain, can see there's a contradiction.
Yep. We're back to seeing words being misused. The same could be said with all the books on celestial navigation, where they'll say it's an angle, blah, 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 and then they show underneath a curved surface. So the coriolis that you see in the articles in air navigation have to do with a correction to horizontal. That's basically it. It's like about acceleration, and you need to keep horizontal. So the plane shifts to the left. You got to make it get horizontal again.
Orientation.
So they're referencing.
That was the word I was
So they're referencing coriolis that way. But again, what is the true definition? And let me just to suppose, as you guys say, an angle measurement is two straight lines meeting at a vertex. They got it next to a globe. Well, that's a contradiction. Coriolis from an aeroplane could only be observed from a non-rotating reference frame.
Non-inertial. Non-inertial rotating reference frame.
My mistake, non-inertial. And so it's an apparent deviation. So how does it carry the same meaning on an airplane? It doesn't. They just use it.
Listen, the bottom line is all the definitions say that it's an illusion. That
Correct.
ends it right there.
Yeah, you're going to see.
I was going to say, it doesn't matter how qualified or seemingly legitimate the source that you're citing is. If it's describing Coriolis, it's describing an illusion. And if it describes a force acting on something like winds, it's wrong. I've seen BBC Weather do the same thing. Claim something that's actually occurring in the case of a wind and its path or direction, and then later describing how the Coriolis has affected that. But they're using the word Coriolis synonymously with the spin of the Earth. They just don't understand the terminology. So if you interchange where they use the word Coriolis with just Earth spin, and then have a vague understanding of an anti-flat Earth rhetoric they might have read somewhere online, you can appreciate why they're using it interchangeably with the word that actually means illusion observed as you rotate beneath, something that will never affect a wind. But it's littered, it's all over the place. People getting it wrong is all over the shop.
Well, maybe we should be pointing out their heresy more than trying to justify why they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. If they say that there's no effect, i.e. they try and negate it because we've pointed out that there isn't one and we're not seeing it on a turning Earth or otherwise, we're just not seeing Coriolis, and then they start explaining why there's no effect, we're going to call them a heretic. Because they are. They're going against what they should believe. Doesn't matter that it doesn't happen. If you're a baller, you should believe it. What do you mean? Explaining why you think it doesn't happen, the ball says it does. So you better believe it. Not deny it or explain why it ain't happening. Just believe it. Believe in the ball. Come on, lads. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this, John.
Yeah,
Anybody see QE? Did anybody see QE's presentation yesterday on the Coriolis
I'm very grateful.
Part 2?
Absolutely. There's only so much steam I can keep up myself in terms of labouring this point. And, you know, I didn't ask him to do that, and I'm glad he has. He's obviously gone, Coriolis, very worth reiterating the point and going over it several times so that people understand and appreciate it. Because I want to make it seem like I'm throwing in the towel. I've had enough of them. In reality, I've just spotted an opening. I've gone, okay, this is interesting. The angle I can work this with is different to how it previously presented itself. Previously, it's argue about how they should be claiming there's drift so I can debunk it. Now it's ask them why they don't believe in the globe. It's a very distinct difference. It's not subtle at all.
A lot easier and a lot more fun. But
so Adam, what did Blue Marble Science? What was he saying about the football field? That it's moving slower?
Yeah, the bottom end's going slower than the middle.
Well, that's the correct rhetoric, is it not?
Yeah. That's Neil deGrasse's rhetoric, yeah.
And that's what you would expect to see on a ball.
Yeah, but he's still claiming it's rotating underneath.
But that's insanity.
But that's what you would claim if you were living on a ball. That's what you would expect to see.
I agree. But wouldn't that like spark something in somebody's brain? Like, this is ridiculous?
Not if they're a heretic, Neil.
Oh yeah, that's right. Heresy. Oh boy.
Everything about everything about the globe is ridiculous. You know, every single point about the globe is absolutely ludicrous.
Maybe that's why they're heretics. Because they see that it's absolutely ludicrous, like you say.
Well, it doesn't matter. They're not an authority to make such changes to their religion.
I don't care that it's ludicrous. I just want to know now why they don't believe it.
Good question.
Perhaps it's because they're only half retarded. There was Ruhip, man. He's the king of this doublespeak, dude. He'll get in the server and claim that celestial navigation can only happen on a spherical Earth. And man, dude, to keep up with his doublespeak, it takes some thought. He's really good at sliding in.
That's quite wrong. It happens from a equator, which is flat. They cut the Earth in half, and the angle is taken from the center, from a equatorial plane. It says in all their books, it's never coming from the surface.
You mean the center?
Cut a circle in half, or in their case, a sphere, and you have a disk. That's why you see all the pictures that we show, the horizon system. The horizon coordinate system has a flat disk with a half a dome on it.
Which is interesting.
Go on.
I was just going to say when you say the horizon coordinate system, because the angle's taken from the feet, right?
Yeah.
And there's still a horizon within the celestial sphere model. Well, that's two tangents to a ball believer. Which one are they going to claim?
They're all claiming this they all claim the line of sight is the actual flat baseline and the surface of the Earth has got nothing to do with it. But then they're forgetting that their line of sight is all bent and refracted. So it can't be.
Well, see, the thing is, if that was true, there would be no horizon in the celestial sphere model. So that's contradictory to that model. So that can't be true.
And by the way, John, on that point, the horizon any human being sees with his natural eyes extends all the way to the celestial sphere.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Tenth.
I know you are.
The angles from the.
Come on, John.
I was going to say the angle is from your feet, and there's a horizon where the sky meets the ground in the celestial sphere model. You can't have that on a sphere.
That's what I'm trying to do, is just paint that picture of what you said for one deck and others. Is like when you're standing there with a sextant and you do dip correction to get it to your feet, that baseline goes all the way, touches the celestial equator, and goes all the way to the celestial sphere model. So it's just one big continuous flat disk. There's no curving down whatsoever. And that's how you get the angle.
Right. But when they say that about you could only take the measurements from a sphere Earth where they want to invoke a tangent doesn't work with that model.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, they can say whatever they want. They could say straight is curved, and they're wrong there. And we know straight is not curved.
Well, see, the tangent's one of the only bits of the globe faith that's asserted they've not let go of. Even when they say refracted, they want to keep the tangent.
Can't have it both ways.
I was watching a guy called Jay's 2 Cents who does PC builds, and he's talking about this piece of programming that does fan curve profiles. And a fan curve profile is just how fast a fan will spin versus a temperature. Fairly straightforward. Just a graph it presents itself as. And on one of these fan curve profiles, it said flat. And he says, you can't have a flat curve. That's just stupid. I thought, shall I steal that? Shall I trim it out for the anti-flat earthers? Jay's 2 cents saying, you can't have a flat curve.
Well, if you remember at the beginning of the you know what, they were saying how you have to flatten the curve.
I'll see if I can find it. I'll play it as a soundbite. You'll have to talk amongst yourselves though.
So, Tent, I heard you when you came in, but people were talking, so I didn't want to say, what's up, Tent?
Well, I didn't hear Nathan. I didn't even hear Nathan say welcome or anything, so I was about to get off and join again, thinking it was a technical issue.
It might have been because I didn't hear you at all.
No, I heard you.
Time. Well, I mean, you. That's what I'm saying. You may have heard him, but I didn't hear him.
That's just a rude English.
Okay, anyway. Finding it.
Was somebody trying to be a heretic, or is my phone messing up?
No, that's Nathan looking for a spot on a recording he wants to share, and we were to talk in between.
So,
Yeah,
Tim,
so
and John,
what's
so
in between?
I got you. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I understood what you're saying about the celestial and the horizon going to the end of the celestial sphere. So their argument about the line of sight, then, what they're on about there? A line of sight isn't actually a physical baseline. It can't be. And their line of sight is bent, isn't it? Am I correct?
Well,
yeah, they're messed up.
Well, you can't get an angle from a curved surface. That's a must in this conversation. So how are they getting the angle? They're pointing the sextant mirror to one of two, as they put it in their books, objects. And their objects one is a star and the other one is the horizon, defined as where the sky seems to meet the earth. So if you aim it at the horizon, it's assuming that between your feet and as far as you could see, that's a straight baseline. But in their model, that continues into space all the way to the celestial sphere. So that means that disk gets really big. And that's the only way you form an angle. Then in other pictures, they say, look, all the math that's in the almanacs are already pre-configured from the center of the earth. So then what they do is they go cut the globe in half, the model, it doesn't exist, and you have this flat disk. And then that extends to the celestial equator.
Got a sync fan curve, we got a mixed fan curve, a flat fan curve, which is kind of, I mean, it can't be a curve that's flat, right?
Nice.
It just made me chuckle. Thank you, Tenth, by the way.
I wonder if he is a flat.
Yeah, well, when you're studying road work, I mean highway work, when they're making a curve around, say,
Neil. Neil.
Sorry.
So they'll have a left turn or an S turn. It's on a flat surface, and they have a curve to it on a flat surface, horizontal curve they call it.
I think it's just strange how they think and what they try and put in. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying about. I know that for a fact. I know all that. You know, you can't get an angle from a curved baseline. I know this. Some of the replies you get, it's just total nonsense. I mean, you can understand young Tommy at 7 years old, maybe going into a geography lesson, and the teacher's teaching him about Eratosthenes and how he measured the curve of Earth using angular measurements, and then young Tommy going into a maths lesson and the teacher describing how an angle has two straight lines, and Tommy not putting these two things together. But when you're a grown-ass man or woman, these are just things you should be able to understand and think, yeah, I can see this. It's a fact and it's right, and there's no way out of it.
Yeah, but you're expecting one deck that once a person who doesn't want to give up the globe sees the fundamental argument destroys their globe belief, like what an angle is, they'll still find a way to try to live in cognitive dissonance and keep their globe faith. So they'll say crazy things because that's the only way it sounds when you go against the fundamental basis of what an angle is. So anyone fighting an angle, a right angle used in celestial navigation, then they're going to sound crazy no matter what, because they're going against the fundamentals. And this is on every subject for everybody. So on the bubble sextant, you have a bubble. And when you center the bubble, you got a true vertical and a perpendicular horizontal, or else you can have that vertical. If the plane veers to the left or to the right, the correction is called coriolis correction. That is what they're talking about. It has nothing to do with actual coriolis if the Earth was spinning.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I assumed. Well, that's what I knew, but like my original point was, it's just how these sources just keep using it after we've listened to Nathan and QE and all of us getting to grips with this coriolis.
Well, they have to keep it in the books, in the language, because it's kind of like a word that keeps them coming to a curved surface that's spinning. They have to put it there, but it's not what's happening, because what's the definition of Coriolis? What's the causes of Coriolis? The Earth spinning, and you want it looking at something not on the Earth. They don't want it to stay there as that fundamental, because then that flight from Charlotte would take an hour and a half, and it doesn't.
They don't like fundamentals at all. It's the same thing I was arguing all day yesterday.
Your voice sounds like you wore it out.
Well, I think it's the first time I've spoken for the day, but I've been up for a while. Yesterday was in Geo's talking about the sextant and celestial navigation, and the only thing I was concerned about is an elevation angle. They kept saying you can take angles with a sextant. You don't need a flat Earth. I was like, but for elevation angles, especially for usage for celestial navigation, most definitely is a horizontal plane. And then they go from there to obviously, but that plane is resting on top of the tangent point of the globe. And it's like, no, all horizontals are parallel, all zeniths are parallel. And they're like, no, they're not. And it's like, there's a box right here. You know that screenshot of the box that we have? You know that the arrow on the bottom is slightly bent, and dude said that arrow's not straight, and I almost lost my mind.
It's not a triangle. Won't give you 90. Won't give you an accurate distance.
Yeah. They bend it on purpose, and they put a 90-degree box there at the same time. There's your contradiction on deck.
Yeah, here's this bent line with another line meeting it, and it's got a 90 box. Like, well, one of them's bent. That's definitely not 90. Oh yeah, it is. It's a bent straight line that we use for our triangle with a curved surface as a baseline. No, it's flat. It's a triangle with 90 at it. It's got to be flat. Well, it's a tangent to the ground. Okay, so you're drawing a line through midair that's got nothing to do with the ground. No, you're navigating on the ground. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, the Adam Meakin, Eli, who's off mute, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Nearly 2 times. I like it.
The globe is a lie.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Don't usually struggle with my own introduction. It's obviously very hot here today. That's my excuse. Anywho, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No evidence. You can't see it. You can't experience it. No.
We had Dr. Phil call in last night in QE Live, or just put a question to chat. There was a picture up on screen of, the 2 black swan pictures that are there, and he was again saying, how do you explain the difference? And as we pointed out to him in the show, his explanation, his ball explanation, that's all that matters now. Yeah, his baller explanation was on that day he had 2 different R values. I brought it up because it's this seed change, Nathan. Previously, I would have gone into detail, but this is the reality now. He's a ball denier, and he's denying that horizon is the leading edge of his ball. But the implications are, Phil, those 2 different pictures means you have a different R value on different days.
Exactly.
I thought you were going to give a different conclusion. The conclusion... you gave the preamble for the conclusion I thought you were going to give. The conclusion is he doesn't believe them. He doesn't believe them when they say that the horizon's Earth curve. He does not believe in the ball. That's the conclusion I thought you were going to make.
No, that's what I said. I said he's denying.
He started out with it.
The fundamental. He's denying his own fundamentals. He's not a ball believer.
Yeah, and regardless of what he comes up with...
The problem with that is...
Go on, Chocolate.
Eli,
my bad.
but I guess when I wake up, I sound like him a little bit.
You're huskier this morning.
That's what it is. He is a lot spicier.
My wife always confuses both of you.
I woke up like 2 hours ago, but I just realized that this is literally the first time I spoke. So it's like here's the thing. If you're carrying out the scientific method, or you're doing a study, or you're writing a paper, or you're trying to express something to your mate, here's what you're going to need: the proper materials and the proper language to communicate and convey exactly what you need to convey. So here's the problem with me and these people that keep showing these 2 pictures. First, let's make clear that the horizon is 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, says them, according to a sphere with a radius of 3,959 miles. That being said, how do you test that claim? Okay, there's one way to do it. You can have something that you know the distance of, right? And so if you know the distance of that thing and you have the horizon calculator in hand, then you know whether or not the horizon is in front of or behind that thing, thus knowing it's either greater than or less than the distance that that physical object that you've measured to, like you know where it is in relation to the horizon, where the horizon is at least plus or minus in relation to that distance. So in that picture where they have the horizon and then the oil rigs, you can't use the same method for that because you have nothing to tell you where the horizon is, plus or minus.
Sure. But
it's
that is
before the
true.
oil rigs,
On, Eli.
but where before the oil rigs?
You're correct in the strictest measurement terms. However, the black swan is a Karl Popper analogy that we've utilised for a good reason, and that's that you only have to show the horizon to be beyond its geometric limitations to deny its physicality once. In the same way, if you claim all swans are white, you only need one black one to disprove that statement. Well, if you're going to claim the horizon is Earth curve, a physical obstruction to boats and buildings and skylines, then you've only got to show once that it isn't a hill getting in the way to disprove the claim that the horizon's a hill getting in the way. So when they go back to, well, on this day, the hill that's in the way is kind of in the way. Well, hills don't move. You've only got to show once that it's not a hill. It doesn't become a hill the following day when it's moved. Hills don't move. If it's a geometric limitation to your view, it's a geometric physical obstruction to your view called Earth curve. Back to the original point with Phil, if you want to show an alternative and explain the alternative, you don't believe the globe. That's the bottom line.
Heretic.
Yeah, exactly. Heresy. Rather than arguing with their heresy, point out that it's heresy. So you don't believe in the globe either. You've got different reasons to me as a flat earther, but ultimately, in our non-belief in the heliocentric claim of a physical Earth curve horizon, you don't believe it either. I don't care about your explanation for why you don't believe the horizon's a physical leading edge of a sphere at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, blocking boats and buildings. That's not interesting to me why you, as an individual without the Western world behind you, don't believe what the globe is claiming. All you're going to get from us from here on forward is, oh, so you don't believe it either. Like a concaver would. I don't know what we've labelled you anti-flat earthers, but you're not globe-believing normies. That's been the whole point of labelling you anti-flat earthers from the off. But now we're going to make it a lot more concise. What's that? It's refracted, so you don't believe the horizon's a physical Earth curve edge in geometric terms either, like claimed by the Earth curve calculators that are claiming to prove Earth curve. You don't believe it either. What's that? You want to tell me about your don't care. You don't believe the globe either. We used to say welcome.
Stone him.
We used to try and get them to understand how appreciably flat it is. I don't even feel the need to do that anymore because really, who was I trying to convince? Not them, me. Now, I've got enough humility to admit that after the fact, but I wasn't trying to convince them. And I strongly believe after the fact that that's true of most of my brethren in this little community we call Flat Earth. You're not trying to convince the people who watch your videos. You're trying to convince yourself. Now that I have actually got concrete evidence of the Earth being measurably, observably, navigatably, demonstrably flat, I don't feel the need to convince anybody. So why try and take that anti-flat earther to the point where he's a glober so you can debunk him with your flat earth assertion, when you can just point out, like a concaver, you don't believe in the mainstream globe truth either then? All right, well, we're a lot more alike than you might like to care for, anti-flat earthers. Ruhif and Simon Dan and Katz, they're a lot more like us than first meets the eye. They don't believe it either. That's the bottom line. That's why they've been subjugated, or whatever the word is, into a very similar little corner of the internet as us. Now, we were the poster childs of conspiracy back in 2015 and 16 until Congress got involved with YouTube. And then you replaced us in the little corner of the internet that we find ourselves in. You're here and we're here. And you're just as dangerous to the actual believers in the globe as we are. Why? Because you, Professor Phil, and you, Simon Dan, and you, Conspiracy Cats, don't believe in it either. So you're dangerous to the real globe believers who do just believe that the horizon's Earth curve and do just believe that Earth rotates beneath things to cause drift called Coriolis effect. So you don't believe those things. So you're a lot more like us than you'd care to like to believe, eh? Yeah, you're not globe believers, lads. You better get used to it.
They're trying to cover up the globe failures, basically. So they want to be believers, but they can't be because they already know its failures and have accounted for it, right?
Heretics.
Yeah, them accounting for it, Arwen, is them just not believing. Let's not try and get around what they've explained, understand it, and then debunk it to bring them in line with the globe so we can debunk that and prove it's flat. Let's just point out the obvious and disturbing for them nature of their reality they find themselves in. They don't believe in the globe.
No, you get it wrong. They believe so much in it that they're even willing to suspend reality in order to reinforce it.
This is not a buffet. The globe's got claims that it makes, and you either believe them or you don't.
No, but you can believe them beyond the natural reality, right?
So you could make up Bible verses that aren't in the Bible and still call yourself a true Bible believer? No, you can't. You either believe what's in the Bible or you don't. You either read it as it's written and interpret it as it's said, or you don't. Now, if you don't, you're just not a believer. If you make up your own interpretation to make it make sense to you, then you're just not a literalist. You're not a true believer. Well, the globers who are out there with the belief that they've got the Western world behind them in their globe belief haven't got the Western world behind them because they don't believe as they do.
But that's because they believe so much in it that they're willing to even double down beyond what the average person would find tolerable.
Still heresy.
It's
still heresy. It doesn't matter if it's tolerable. Arwen, hold on. Let me have it out with Arwen. It doesn't matter if the word of the text is factually and demonstrably wrong. That isn't required for you, average normie, to have belief in it as a statement. It doesn't matter that it's factually inaccurate to claim we've got Coriolis effect, Earth turning beneath stuff to cause things that aren't attached to drift. Now, we understand that that's nonsense, and the anti-flat earthers understand that it's nonsense, so much so that you're saying they've got the passion to believe in the globe to explain away why it doesn't happen. And that might be true, but the belief in the globe doesn't require anything to be true about what it states. It isn't. It just requires you to believe in it. And Simon, Dan, and Cats and Co. do not believe in it. That's all that's required. Not that it's true, that they believe in it, and they don't.
Right. Well, they shouldn't have ate from the tree of knowledge of flat Earth, but they did. And now they're excluded from that paradise, and they can only dream back about it and assert how they were okay taking that apple because it's wrong. That knowledge is fake.
Yes.
It's not really a flat Earth.
Exactly. I describe this formally as the cliff that you find yourself at the edge of when you come across the subject. Now, it doesn't matter if you're on the anti-flat Earth side or flat Earth side. When you get to that cliff, if you go over the edge, you fall down it. There's no other route. And when you get to the bottom and you dust yourself off, you either go, oh my God, I'm in hell. This can't be the case. Everything must be a lie if that's the case. No, it must still be a globe. Let's find reasons why. That's the metaphorical equivalent of trying to scramble back up the cliff. Whereas we go down and go, wow, check how clear the water is. Wow, there's little rapids down there. We can have a right laugh. This is ace. Oh, look at them up there. Man, they're right in the clouds at the top of the cliff, aren't they? And what's the top of the cliff the metaphor for? Just average normie walking around believing he's on a sphere. Yeah, the anti-flat earthers like cats. And Simon Dan and Professor Phil, they've already fallen down the cliff. And their attempts to scramble back up are them trying to figure out a way of explaining something that they should just believe in. Now, they could just carry on believing. There's plenty of people who I know have come into this subject, found it a bit overwhelming, been a bit of an anti-flat earth for a while, and then just disappeared. Now, those people, I would hope, have just put it to the back of their mind at the very least and just tried to forget about it. In other words, carried on believing that there's drift and believing that the sky is a vacuum. Doesn't matter that it's not and it doesn't work. Just believe it and you'll be okay as a normie glober. Something that the anti-flat earthers don't seem to want to do. They want to square circles that can't be squared.
Are you saying, Nathan, that they've fallen off the globe edge?
Yeah, they've fallen off the geometric horizon and are being obscured by it.
We're talking about their globe Bible. They are heretics because what they've done, they've gone off and instead of using the Bible now, they've got these things written on golden tablets that they're now using, which has some bearing to the previous religion, but it's completely different. It's fundamentally different. And that's where they're out there. They've gone off and written their own scripture. And to keep the ball, they're still believing in that. But again, they're heretics. They're denying the true tenets of their ball religion. They've had to make their own.
That's the worst kind of heresy, too.
Adam,
religion Protestants.
It was a Mormon dig, Arwen.
Adam, would that be known as non-canonical books?
I think it's possible. Like the heliocentric priests also changed the narrative in possible preparation for them now seeing that things of the previous model are being destroyed, like the R value of the Earth, for instance. I mean, if they realise that the R value has been debunked, what would you do to try and compensate that for in their world? You'd change the shape of the globe, wouldn't you? And they've already plotted that in people's minds, haven't they? Like it's a pear shape and all this. And I think they plan these things out ahead, knowing what's coming. But obviously, you can't deny our elevation angle is obtained from a flat baseline. But I think that's what they're up to as well. Professional anti-flat earthers, the heliocentric priests at work.
Can I ask a quick question of the panel? Just a quick one. Did you have a point to make? Go ahead. Sorry, I'll ask afterwards.
Just very quick. Just that they can't change the shape of their globe. They can't change anything because it has to match our perspective view of the sky. It has to match the angular drop and rise rate of Polaris. So they can't change that. It has to be exactly as it is, and it doesn't work as it is. So it's over.
I was going to ask some of the panel, in the same way, I probably asked this a couple of years ago after the Black Swan, as in, does anybody concern themselves that there might be a sphere Earth at the end of this discussion or somewhere in their future? And my concern for that ended maybe February, March 2020, after the Black Swan had been released and really hashed out. Whereas now I'm going to ask a similar question, but about proving flat Earth. I've alluded to the idea that up until this point, I was more trying to convince myself than I was my audience, or the opponent, that the Earth is flat. Now, once I've reached the stone-cold absolute realisation there is no way around this, there's no way back, the models of the globe came from the flat Earth, all of those realisations, does anybody truly have any concern for convincing others since they found that out? Or am I alone in my sort of, I don't really care now? It's kind of, it's a fait accompli now. It doesn't really make any difference if you believe me or not.
If I may,
go on.
If I may, first, Adam, right? I'm worried about one thing. Not that it might not turn out to be a flat Earth, but looking at the scope and the depth of how much fallacy is within the globe religion and how it played into this dynamic nature, this flexible nature of the mind of humans. And it worries me that it's persisted so well so long. So the worry is not about the physical reality, rather about the psychological nature of the predicament we're all in right now.
Well, but we're not in it. We're metaphorically at the bottom of the
we're
cliff.
among them.
Well, I'm just saying we seem to walk among them, but we don't. It doesn't work in my metaphor because they're at the top of a cliff and we're at the bottom of it. But equally, when I look back up in that metaphor to the people walking around with their head in the clouds at the top of the cliff, in a globe belief, they're not too concerned with it, are they, Arwin? Now, that lack of concern, that oblivious ignorance is bliss motif that they get to experience without even realising it, is what the anti-flat earthers really want back. That's what they want, to not care, to not be concerned anymore about this. That's what they truly want. And they can't have it.
They can't.
What is your question, Nathan? Sorry.
Do you really concern yourself with proving that it's flat now that we've got the elevation angle measurement and the stone cold proof that their model came from the flat Earth and the celestial sphere model in the first instance? Do you now concern yourself as much with proving it to others?
Oh.
No, I have a confidence about it. I just don't.
Nope.
I have. Yeah. It just is. It's like trying to prove a sweeping brush is a sweeping brush. You don't need to do it. If you know what I mean. You don't feel the need to do that. It is what it is. You know, you can't call it a shovel.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
that's the
before-
phraseology. Just let me rephrase it for the ease of the other panel members. Since this elevation angle argument and the derivation of sphere from flat plane, the is what it is mentality is now more prevalent than the I want to convince people it's flat mentality. Would you agree? Anybody else?
I would say your question, if I can go first, you got to break that question for me in two parts. One, the way you just said, I'm settled. I mean, there's no changing, there's no desire. But then there's that part B, which is if I have a friend or a loved one who's under the lie, I want to take time and share with them what I know. So if you do it in two parts, I could say I'm completely satisfied where I'm at. I'm not wavering either direction. I'm set. Now, how many globies do I know that I could help get set?
Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it. The reason I ask is because I project my own feelings onto 10,000 other people and say that if I were in a position to not be 100% convinced, I just didn't realise it. And once you get your silver bullet, you go, I'm a lot less concerned about it now. And that's because I actually know and I didn't before. And I only realise that now. I kind of think, projected out onto others, there's probably a good chunk of people who are in this arena that can be appealed to in this regard, to say, maybe your concern isn't so much that you want to project this out to others. I'm not decrying your point, by the way, here, 10th. But maybe you just weren't 100% convinced in the same way I'm now confessing to not being 100% convinced. I just didn't even realise it. I didn't have a silver bullet.
You would have, let me add commentary to that. You're correct if you're a novice. You're correct if you don't know the arguments. You're correct because you don't put people who just go to boot camp in front of a fight. You have to get them beaten down in boot camp so they think differently. So, yeah, if you're a brand new person coming to flat Earth and you don't know the tricks, you're going to meet with some disappointments. You don't even know how big the question is. But if you're seasoned, have at it.
But that's the thing. Hold on. That's the thing. When you say arguments, right? Like this, the elevation angle, it's not an argument.
Right.
Yep.
But that's a seasoned person could only know that.
Yeah, that's another good way of putting it, though.
But
that's another more eloquent way of putting it, even. Because up until now, I've known the flat Earth arguments really well. But the elevation angle discussion about Earth being flat is not an argument for flat Earth that I know really well. It's a discussion point about the nature of reality that ipso facto lays out how the world is. So it stops being I've got to argue with it and I know the arguments really well, and turns into Earth is flat. That's how it's behaved, measured, navigated. That's how it is. What, you don't agree?
Right.
Oh, well.
The elevation angle is just a
disagree.
fundamental geometric argument, right?
Arguments are agree, disagree, right? That's belief. You have arguments over belief. What is just what is. You don't argue what is. That's delusion.
Yeah.
Okay, before I came, hold on. Can I go real quick? Before I discovered this show, I had a fear. There was always a little fear in the back of my mind. But it wasn't until I came here. I don't have that fear no more. Earth is flat, and that's a fact.
Right, and that's the sentiment I'm trying to get across, because that's something that where I can appeal to a wider audience that doesn't exist because we're shielded from it, or they're shielded from us more likely. We can appeal to that audience that is the extension of my dissemination of embarrassing truth that I didn't really know. And Neil's just re-expressed that. So that's the bit I'm trying to convey to the audience, which is to say that the regulars it doesn't apply to, but there's plenty of people that you'll know that are in the Flat Earth community that may have come by the Flat Earth debate and don't realise where we are in terms of the tip of the spear in that regard. You know, knowing that it's stopped being an argument and is an ipso facto statement of fact when it comes to the nature of reality that's being talked about rather than debated about here. Now, people will come in and talk about their beliefs in the nature of Earth, and that's always going to be the debate's subject. But our fascination in the opponent is, for me at least, shifted from debating something which I didn't necessarily know to be true, and knowing that my position doesn't have a debate attached to it, and an inquiry about why they don't believe in their belief. And with John's explanation in tow, you've got, well, agree, disagree is all about globe Earth. Could it work like this according to you? Well, that doesn't matter. The globe says it does work like this. Whether or not it does is irrelevant completely. Just believe that it does. That's all that's required. And if you don't, I'm intrigued in people like cats now. They hold it more. Maybe I'll start watching them a bit, because it's a little bit more fascinating how these conspiratards that don't believe in the mainstream rhetoric behave and convince themselves that they do. I mean, that's psychologically interesting. The fact that I know differently to what they're arguing for is also irrelevant. I'm confident in what I now know. But I also see people who claim to have a belief but spend a lot of their time arguing against their own belief that they obviously don't hold. So that's intriguing, wouldn't we all agree?
Yeah. Have a stab at it, Nathan, as well. I'd be with you. I think in the past, I think I would say there was a point where I knew everything I was being told about the ball was false. I could demonstrate it was a lie. And you see on the Globe Lie tour, and they changed that because lots of flat earthers back then had a trouble with making the positive claim. And I think it was Roxy and Jason, formed it like that. So when we went on the European tour, it was the Globe Lie. It was an easier thing to demonstrate to people. And I think back then, even in myself, I would have accepted that it could have been a ball, but that all the things that I was given as to why it was a ball were not valid. But I still couldn't say to myself 100%. I think since the Black Swan and celestial navigation, I do stand there with a much firmer surety in myself. I can't anything. I know balls to bone, if you know what I mean, that it is flat. Other than that, I've got no Scooby Doo. And do I need to validate it anywhere? No. And I don't think I was doing that when I went before, because I'm going to go again. If you look at what's on screen, there's one coming up next month. So I'm going to try and make a few dates there. And it's a little bit like 10th. Why am I going? It's not for my own affirmation anymore. It is to share that knowledge. And if we can start a few other people on that journey, brilliant. Will I be more confident there now? Yeah. Was I confident enough last time? Yeah. But that would be my perspective on it. But just to give a shout out. So that's from Monday the 11th of July to Friday the 22nd, touring the UK for Plymouth, Bath, Cardiff, Gloucester, Birmingham, Cambridge, Norwich, the lovely city of Nottingham, Hull, Leeds, and then Preston.
A very, very honest assessment, Adam. We all went on that same journey, and we are where we are now. So formidable.
I would have to be a little bit different. I accepted it was flat in 2015 immediately because of my past experiences. I just accepted it was flat. It was just a case of getting the arguments correct and finding my way through the weeds of heliocentrism. Now, I'm not trying to be a special fella or anything like that. That's just the way it was. It's like, no, it can't be a globe. And it made me laugh when our opposition, like I was laughing at our pathetic attempts to try and show us curvature back in 2015. You know, so I didn't have all the arguments down. I didn't know all the heliocentric information, but it didn't matter. I had a confidence in it back then from immediately from watching that Eric DeBay video. I just had a confidence in it because that's why I started laughing. And I did make mistakes in the past 7 years trying to tell people close to me that it was flat and different things. I did, yeah, but now I don't care. It's like if people want to come to me with it, I'll lay out the facts. If they don't accept them, it's up to them. I don't care.
Well, that's the journey, Brian.
Just to finish, what the difference between them and us, and I was thinking this the past few days, is they've got math and we've got measurement. There is no, it's like we hold the trump card every day. Sorry, Ken, go on.
No, I'm saying that's what I meant by the journey. The journey wasn't for me to believe or for anyone that I'm speaking for to eventually believe. No, we knew it was flat. The journey was getting used to the arguments and knowing how to do it in the public forum. That was the journey.
Gas pressure without a container. Once I heard that, I mean, that was like eye-opening.
Yeah, once I realized the horizon's not physical sphere edge, that was that. I didn't need to get to the elevation angle or anything like that. As soon as I realized way back that the horizon's just an apparent location, an optical phenomena, that was that. Because if it's a physical ball, that whatever that is, that horizon, that should not be moving back and forth. And then and what was it? You said, Brian? They have math. We have measurement, right? You know what else they got?
Yeah.
Reasons. All I've heard for the past 7 years are reasons why the very claims that their side makes don't actually work. And that's what these guys have spent 7 years doing with us, telling us all the reasons why the things that they're supposed to believe in don't work out. And we're supposed to just accept that.
Heresy.
Nah, I'm good.
Exactly.
They can keep that shit.
Heresy.
What is an elevation angle measurement? I don't play word games.
Yeah.
Cutting their legs right out from them.
But
that's what it is.
The one that stuck out to me so far is Brian's, which is to say that I completely agree with him, but he's almost trying to reposition my sentiment with a different example, which it isn't. Because I'm identical in terms of my description, but to compare without knocking you, if I go back to the Isle of Man and look at the discussions that we had then, I know it's flat. You can hear it in my voice. There's no hint that I'm lying to my audience when I'm arguing that position. However, I'm arguing it from a much higher level of ignorance then, obviously it's a long time ago, than now. And that position of ignorance didn't mean I didn't believe it was flat any less, or, as you put it, know it was flat, based on my experience as a rep and the justification I've given until now of going to the back of the plane and seeing the flat plane below me and all those other things I'd considered before finding the subject out and instantly knowing it was flat. But I still progressed on a journey that ultimately suggests I wanted more. I was dissatisfied with what I had, otherwise I'd have just gone on with life, wouldn't I? Instead, I embarked on a journey to find more. Now, when you go back in retrospect and look at something like the Isle of Man discussion, you go, you're arguing within a paradigm that you've lost every day you step into the discussion. Every day you're talking about a calculator that automatically begs the question of your opponent's position. And you didn't even realise that you'd lost every day you had the debate. Nathan Oakley had lost every day. You watch any show from 50 to 200 when we're talking about the Isle of Man, every single one I'd lost the moment I opened up the doors. Why? Because we argued within a framework of a question that was being begged in favour of the sphere. We just didn't know it. So even though I was fighting a losing battle, I still believed it. I just didn't have what I needed to sit back in confidence and not really care, because I ultimately knew what was being, as you put it, measured of the Earth. I didn't know all that. I had a vague contemplation of it, but that's about all. I needed more to be confident, and argued from a position that I'm appealing to my audience to know as much as I do in my arrogance, when really I was ignorant.
You don't realise that, though, do you? Until you've got the better argument. So, like you say, you believe just as much back then.
Just cut in the paradigm.
But could you have nailed it down and put your kids' lives on it? No, not maybe. That's what I'm saying. I was being honest. If something else came, was there something else? And that's probably what we were searching for. And when we got to the Black Swan and that, it is the final nail, because it just pulls. We talk about, Neil mentioned gas pressure. Well, lovely, but that doesn't define the shape, does it, to me? It shows me one thing, that again, that their rhetoric was nonsense in that bit of the claim. But did I have this unifying thing that pulled it together? And I don't think, until we got the Black Swan and the Sexton, you see, it's when you put those two together with everything else you'd learned, that you now know. You have proof, evidence.
Yeah, in terms of a top three, gas pressure without a container has gone from number 1 in 2018 to number 2 in 2020 to number 3 in 2023. So it's moved down in position. It doesn't mean it's not a great song. It just means that there's better, more popular songs available. And the more popular songs are the Black Swan and the elevation angle argument. Because at number 1, the globe was made by using measurements from a flat plane.
The thing I'd say, Nathan, the final bit of what you're saying, am I arsed anymore? It's not so much that. It's when you come to this reality, there is other conclusions you have to draw, right? That of a creator. And I think that's what probably realigns your motivations and where you want to expend your energies. Do I need a million more proofs? No. Are there other things I want to find out as a consequence of this route I'm on? Yeah. And I think that's why I still want to share and do things like that with Flat Earth. But in terms of where I invest my energy and time in terms of my personal reading and research, it's not in Flat Earth stuff anymore.
Fair enough. Are you new, Johnny B? Did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yeah, maybe I will ask about something, but I will also what you have forgot, or maybe you have to clarify better. I can say coriolis, I can say sextant, and I can say also the path of the sun. If we start with the coriolis, people have to understand what is an inertia frame and what is a non-inertia frame. That is, in non-inertia frame is the Earth. If you're standing on the Earth that is rotating, if it is rotating, the rotating frame. People have to know that. They don't know if it's an inertia frame or it's a non-inertia frame. Do you understand?
Oh, absolutely. It took me ages to understand it. I had to have it broken down multiple times by Quantum Eraser, and I still didn't understand it. And then Paula, Bible literalist now in our chat as Level Up, was kind enough to go through it with me and explain it in language that I understood, that I just couldn't get, because it didn't make any sense, right? Non-inertial being the spinning reference frame? What? But it's spinning, it's moving. How can it be non-inertial? Well, it's non-inertial because you're part of it. So if you're looking at your feet and the floorboards of a turning roundabout, the floorboards, the roundabout, they're all as one. And the reason it's described that way is because the effect that's going to be described is an illusionary effect. But it is apparent. In other words, you can see it happening. So therefore, to describe something that isn't really happening in a way that describes it as actually being apparent, you can see it, you must have you be described as not moving. In other words, from your vantage point, if you look at the floorboards on the roundabout, they're not moving. You're not moving. You're non-inertial. Well, you're on a non-inertial, from your vantage point not moving, turning, overall the reference frame is rotating, reference frame. To see a ball tossed over the top of the roundabout in the inertial reference frame, because that's the frame of reference that's going to have the inertial effect of it curving. Shh, it isn't really curving, it's moving straight. But you're seeing it apparently curves. So because you can see that effect of it curving, you have to describe that as an inertial effect. But it isn't really happening. The ball's going over the roundabout in a straight fashion. So to describe it as you see it, and you see it curving when tossed straight, you have a non-inertial turning reference frame, which you are a part of, being the reference frame that the curved path is described from. There you go, that's quite detailed. Less concise than usual, but
short. Okay. Hang on. That's you are part of. That is a nickel board for it. You are non-inertial frame. That's you are part of, right?
Yes.
There you have it. Then that is the rotating frame. If you are part of it.
Yeah.
So
if you're on the roundabout, you're part of the roundabout turning.
Yeah, and everything in the sky. If you think of the sky, and if you're on a rotating Earth, we are not on a rotating Earth, but I say if, then everything in the sky is the inertial reference frame.
Correct. If it's not attached to the rotating reference frame, it's in the inertial reference frame.
Yeah, there we have it. If you are part of it, then it's non-inertial. Okay, then we talk about if we talk about the sextant, that people have to understand what the circular equal altitude is and what they can tell you. What is circular equal altitude?
Flat. Two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Circles are two-dimensional.
It's two-dimensional. It's like you're triangulate, but you are not triangulating. You are your coordinate. Coordinate and triangulate is not maybe the same thing, but can you clarify for the audience the difference?
Between triangulating, i.e. finding three locations that coincide at a single point, and what was the other one you wanted to compare it to?
Yeah, okay. You know, if you aim to the star it can be the moon, it can be the star, it can be the sun. Okay. You can the best thing is if you want to make 3 points, that's a circle of equal altitude to the stars, and you get angled to 3 stars, and from the stars you are making circular equal altitude. Then you are getting area of thousands of miles that is proven flat, right?
Yes.
But it's maybe not real triangulation. It is more about angle, and then you can make it true because you're using the almanac to get the true distance from the landmark and so on and so on. And therefrom, you can get circle of equal altitude. That, in my mind, will tell me the area that you are measuring is absolutely flat. It cannot be an equal altitude if it is not flat, right?
Correct. You can't draw a two-dimensional circle or 3 two-dimensional circles that cross at a single point if you're on a curved surface. That doesn't work.
Yeah. Therefore, I want you on the plot of debate pointed out the circle of equal altitude is very, very strong point. Very, very strong point.
We do regularly.
Then I will go. Okay. Then I will go to the path of the sun, like we understand it. because the people don't understand if they are in somewhere in the South America and if you're everywhere you're on the earth, you're not seeing you cannot see the effect that's happening around the North Pole, like I have done. And in the summertime, you can see the path of the sun is a circle over your head above. That is a very, very strong point, and it's self-evidence. But so many people that in the flat earth community, or what you want to call it, don't understand that because they have never been there. I think it's a very strong point also, because you can see the path of the sun go in a circle above your head. That's proof that the Earth is going in a circle, and you can take time lapse of it. What do you say about that?
Well, it was one of the first things I did. So I set up a whole bunch of people. Adam was there along with a few other people, including Arwin, and I can't remember if Brian was there or not. And we got everyone that we could to track the sun's movement in real time. So film it at sunrise, sunset, and when it was at solar zenith, or as close to as they could get. And as you say, getting a good handle on seeing the sun do the motion in the north around your position along the horizon, low to the horizon, versus rising in the east, setting in the west, and going across you, across the top of your position, meeting at your zenith, and then going down towards the other horizon. Those two things are very, very different. But positionally, if you mark where the sun is actually over, i.e. where it's directly above at a given time, you can see that the motion tracks up with how you would position yourself with the sun itself if you timed it at different points in the day. Because you can triangulate your position with the sun, you just can't do it once. You've got to have more than one thing, obviously, to get multiple positions from. So you just have to wait. But you can still log where it was above at a given time.
Exactly. We are not pointing or talking about that so much. It's real evidence that we have, and we have to point out that it's so obvious for me. And if you think about it, that how we see the sun and everything we see in the heaven body, it's for me it's like a apparent vision. It's absolutely close, but the power of it is behind. But I have no proof for it. It's just like I understand it.
Sounds like you got a very good handle on it. Quick shout out to Jado. He says, Akumu virus is the biggest closet flat earther I've ever seen. Maybe. I think these people are just in denial about what the globe actually claims, because a lot of them don't believe it.
Heretic.
Yeah, heretic.
He's the biggest heretic.
So, Nathan, do you realize what just happened? This fine gentleman came on after listening to your show for a while, has 3 very solid points to make with anybody about the nature of Earth, and it's thanks to your show and the
he didn't credit the show.
show.
Yes, twice you did that. He didn't actually credit the show with that information being in his arsenal.
No, he did. He said he listened to your show.
Yeah. Oh, I must have tuned that bit out through modesty. My bad.
Well, this
the first thing.
This is why we do what we do.
Very good. In that case, great. Yes. Result. Very pleased to hear it. Also, shout out to Sleeping Warrior, who says, Akumu virus is the biggest closet flat earther I have ever seen. Okay. Thank you very much for the super chats, Sleeping Warrior and Jado.
Keep hanging in there, Kuma.
Nathan, Tony's, with regards to your question earlier, Tony's probably one of the ones that was early on, gave the ballers, give me some evidence and I'll change it, like with these Southern Stars. I'd like to hear his response. Where he's at now.
You're joking, I don't. I immediately, my skin starts to crawl. Because what he actually did was allow them to beg the question. He'd say, give me evidence of the ball. And they go, well, if the Earth's a ball, then blah, 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 blah. And I go, don't let them beg the question. They go, no, they're going to get somewhere with this. Got to let them beg the question a little bit. It drive me up the wall.
No, he drive me up the wall when he would say it might be a bigger ball.
the point is, I wonder how his mindset is now, because we were very different way in approaching it. Like I said, we'd argue for hours within their curve calculator and not know that was daft. Do you know what I mean? So there we go.
Hey, Sleepy Mario.
Yo, I heard my name and I didn't have a link, so shout out to 10th for passing me a link. Adam, you failed on your quest for today's link.
Oh, I did.
You know Master B?
No, I left Master B ages ago.
Oh, right, okay.
So no, I didn't get a link, but what did you say you wanted to know my opinion on, Adam? Which point?
Well, Nathan, summarise your question again, because
it's fairly long-winded. So prior to Black Swan and Elevation Angle, I confessed that while I knew the arguments well, I didn't really know Earth was flat. So therefore, I kept on my quest to find things that proved it, were a silver bullet, whatever analogy you want to use. And I asked the panel, since then, do you, like me, feel similarly that you care a little bit less about proving it to others? Because in my case, at least, I was just trying to prove it to myself at a higher standard. So since the two arguments, Black Swan and Elevation Argument, do you feel more confident, less confident? What's your opinion?
See, I don't even like the word flat, as in flat Earth, because I accept that mountains and valleys exist, so local topography means that it can't be flat. That argument is logically sound, it is valid, and we shouldn't use the phrase flat Earth because it isn't flat. But what we can use, well, then the question becomes, well, what would be the adjective that we would then use as a short, snappy phrase to contrast ourselves from the heliocentric person, right? We need a word to describe it that's not too long-winded. So I accept that on superficial perception, flat Earth is a perfectly acceptable explanation. But then you get idiots in chat that go, oh, well, let's apply the definition. I like the definitions. And you get people in chat that then say things like, well, flat means without any relief to it, right? And it does. But notice when you get somebody that points out that definition to try and use it against you, when you then point out their definitions and they run away from their definitions, the hypocrisy then becomes stark. So then I like to point out the hypocrisy of the claim. But back to the original question, how do I perceive it? I don't like the phrase flat Earth because it's a stereotype as well as a pigeonhole, as well as inaccurate. It's not an accurate way of describing the world we live in.
We'll get to that.
But
it is.
We'll get to that.
But
just let him go. We'll get to that.
I prefer the descriptive word of formless or without shape, because one, it allows you to invoke the Bible, which is the antithesis of their model, because they hate the Bible. So I do it just to spit petrol on the fire. But also, without shape or formless is a better word to use to describe the contours of the land that we have, that are mountains and valleys. So I accept that we are without shape, but I don't like the phrase flat. So I don't really like the word flat Earth.
Yeah, but he goes on to form the
Hold on.
I want
You
to
might have more.
respond.
Hello? You might have a bit more. Hello? Go ahead, Sleepy Mario, or was that it?
No, I was just addressing the point that I don't really like the phrase flat Earth because we do have mountains, and I think that the better word is...
We got that.
formless.
Is there anything else, though?
Yeah. No, that's it.
Okay. Just one quick question, and then Arwin, and then Neil. So, would you accept that as an aspect, Earth is flat?
As a loosely held, it is flat.
As an aspect of Earth's topography overall?
Yeah, but a loose aspect, because like if someone says to me, is it really flat though? And I'll say no, because I do accept mountains. And they say, but then it's not flat, then is it?
Sure. But a mountain isn't the entirety of the Earth, is it? So I'm asking, as an aspect, if you included all of the known land that we had, and you had to draw it out on a graph or a diagram, would you agree that the aspect that you would plot it on would have to be flat?
Yeah.
Earth is flat. So Earth is flat, Anthony. There is no non-justification. It's a perfectly acceptable statement. It's an aspect of the world that presents itself.
You can't use the word flat because flat means without relief in this context, and there is relief.
And overall,
that's not what it's about.
Yeah. And as an aspect, overall, There is no relief. Overall, it is flat. As an aspect, that is a factually accurate statement. Would you not agree?
It's more like a contradiction in terms, in my opinion.
No, it isn't.
No, but it isn't.
No, it isn't.
I want to go after Arwin and Neil.
No, hold on.
Okay.
No,
Arwin, I'm talking. They'll just get control.
No.
I'll pass it to you, Arwin. So,
Thank you,
Arwin,
right?
and then... Oh, he won't let me take control. Thank you, Arwin. I'm trying to hand
sorry.
over to you. If you can shut up long enough, I'll hand the mic to you. Yes, Arwin, then Neil. Go ahead, Arwin.
Right. So flat Earth is not about the surface structure. It is about the overall geometry from a vantage point of assuming a shape about the overall Earth, right? Because of the dichotomy that we find ourselves in versus a ball, which is a very specific geometry, right? So the flat is basically a geometric aspect. It's very specifically about the geometry, not about the surface and what it looks like, right? It's about the canvas, not about how thick are the layers of paint over here on this canvas versus over there. That's not what it's about. So every time a baller brings that up, it's a red herring.
I think Arwin put that beautifully. Absolutely. When you juxtapose the false dichotomy we find ourselves in, that would be ball Earth versus what they call, and Anthony doesn't like, in quotes, flat Earth. The overall comparative aspect versus the other is flat. And I've got no issue saying that. Neil, go ahead. Then who is this? Then John.
I just want to address the biblical term without form and void. It was, but then he went on to create, and he created a flat Earth with mountains, valleys, rivers, and oceans.
Okay. Can I make my point?
Whatever. Thank you, Neil. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah. If you were going to build on a table, the table would be your baseline. It would be your, basically, once you made sure it was horizontal, it would be your horizontal baseline. So then whatever you build, the overall aspect of that will be flat. Now, if we take whatever we built on that table off and we put a microscope on that table, will that table be flat? No, it will have undulations on that table, because when we see into the smaller parts of the table, we'll see undulations and hills and valleys within that table. But when we look at that table from outside of that, it will look flat. The same way as from an airplane, the horizon looks flat, because all these mountains and everything end up so small in angular size that they just end up being part of a horizontal line. So as a description of the whole of the Earth, flat is the only way you could describe it.
Exactly.
Or horizontal.
Exactly. If you're gonna make a comparison to how the topology lies, you will be comparing it to the flat aspect, and that is how it's done. So if you go to Google Earth, I think you have to have the Pro version to do this, you can draw out an elevation profile where you can draw a line from one end of the known Earth to the other. And the graph it brings up might include the Mariana Trench in it and show it dipping down, but the overall graph that it sits on from one end to the other has no relief. There's only comparative relief within that overall flat aspect that the Earth is. I also do like what Anthony said about it not having form, because that ties quite beautifully. I had a little goosebump moment when he said it, and he was like, well, I like it because it triggers them because it's biblical. And I was like, well, that isn't why it's giving me goosebumps, because it's so factually accurate. Without form. The amount of times I've said to some idiot that's asked me what shape Earth is, flat's not a shape, it's an aspect. So to juxtapose it with your sphere belief is ludicrous. So to say without form is beautiful. I love that. And it's biblical as well.
I just like it because I just like it really because it is like the biblical description of it, but just by citing that one word, I can imagine the likes of Gem Panda exploding at the other end of the mic. They'd be on mute when they did it, but they would go, "What's the Bible?" Like instantly, it'd be like a Victor Meldrew moment, and that for me is really satisfying. So I just like it for that reason.
Hold on.
You do realize, though, that every time you say that, you are effectively denying creation, right? Because it is a pre-God arrival statement.
Thank you.
I don't care what it's denying. I just like the word.
Yeah, but you're missing something here. Any baller who's pulling that card on us, right? That originally started with Bev saying this. Now the ballers are trying to say it to us. What they're forgetting about is those same mountains and valleys are supposed to be on their globe. So that means they don't have a sphere if we don't have a flat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Arwin said that was
So they
Arwin's
have
point. When you hold up their false dichotomy of flat Earth versus globe Earth in their stereotyping fallacy of what they say flat Earth is, and they ask us what shape it is, their mind is looking for the answer of pizza pie with boat falling over the edge of it, rising up at 9.8 metres per second, a la the Flat Earth Society. That's the ideal answer in that false dichotomy. Well, by comparison, Arwin's saying you can only take that as read. You want a false dichotomy of the overall sphere Earth encompassing every bit of known land that we know versus what I say the overall quote-unquote shape of the Earth is. Well, pound for pound, it's flat. And if you want to give an actual comparison where somebody's verbalised that, what you've just said, Brian, Neil deGrasse Tyson does it when people take him out of context talking about the pear-shaped Earth. He does describe it mathematically as being a little bit chubbier at the bottom. He then goes on to say that if it was scaled down to the size of a bowling ball and you ran your hands over it, it would be perfectly smooth. You wouldn't feel any of the mountains, like you described with the table and the undulations in it if you got down to the microscopic level. Well, if you scaled the claim to be sphere Earth, heliocentric ball Earth world down to the shape and size of a bowling ball, you wouldn't feel any mountains. You wouldn't feel the Mariana Trench. You wouldn't feel anything. It would be perfectly smooth. Well, likewise, when you take that presumed to be spherical surface and flatten it out, overall, as an aspect on a graph depicted in Google Earth, aka elevation profile, it's perfectly flat when you look at it as an overall. But then when you zoom in, you've got topology. Yeah, wow. By scale, it's a completely smooth bowling ball on a globe Earth. By comparison, it's a completely smooth surface on a flat plane if you look at it, as Arwin said, from a distance. But that's the only way you can stack up their false dichotomy and give them an answer. You want to know what shape it is. Flat's not a shape, but if you want it in that false dichotomy, it's flat. Overall, it's flat.
Well, there's another thing
Wouldn't
too.
the aspect rather be level? Wouldn't it rather be accurate to say level? Because flat in the definition is that no part is higher or lower than another. And if we have undulations, then we have parts which are higher or lower than the others. And I think that's what Anthony's point was.
I agree. And likewise, you can juxtapose that by saying sphere. Well, a sphere would mean that it's perfectly not got any flat surface and blah, blah, blah. You can make the same, what's the word? It's a red herring rebuttal. Right. Because by comparison, their sphere Earth's perfectly smooth. So you're saying that the sphere to be called a sphere has to be perfectly smooth. It's an unreasonable rebuttal when you're comparing the two in false dichotomy, like Arwin so eloquently stacked them up.
Well, it's also a qualification versus quantification problem, because when you quantify how unlevel or unflat it's going to be by applying topology, it'll be to a baseline that is flat.
Exactly.
Pretty eloquent.
Exactly.
So
the
the
line on the
qualification-
diagram in the elevation profile is perfectly flat. So you're going to be comparing those relief or elevation differences to an overall flat graph. That's how
You wouldn't call the base of a graph flat. You'd call it level.
Or
You'd say the base of the graph is level.
That level of semantics, fine. I'm more than happy to concede on. Fine, level.
Yeah, elevation angles, though, Nathan. That's all it is. The point of the elevation angles, the point of if you're using the marine sextant, the whole point of it is that you are describing it as the baseline of your right-angle triangle being the surface of the water and Earth, the horizontal baseline of Earth underneath you. You're pre-assuming that the Earth has a horizontal baseline for hundreds and thousands of miles. So as an aspect, as a description, you couldn't describe it in any other way but flat or horizontal.
Or level. Exactly. Earth is measurably and navigatably flat. That's how it's measured. So if you want to get semantic about the actual word, I don't mind. I don't care. It's just not falling away at 8 inches per mile squared and spherical. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat. I think there was a couple of super chats that actually floated by that I didn't catch, so let's see if I can catch those now. Let's bring up the super chats again. Maybe I can find them in time during this outro and still seem slick. Probably not. Shout out to... Well, scroll, the wheel's not going quick enough. Yes, there we go. Chronicles of the Unconvinced, who says, Akumu is the biggest closet flat earther I've ever seen. All right. Okay, well, you've third super chat in a row that's disclaiming that Akumu virus is a closet flat earther. Really appreciate the support, Chronicles of the Unconvinced. Also, another shout out to Jardot, who says, I miss Ranty. Where is he? The second biggest closet flat earther after Akumu virus. Okay, there's a lot of love for Akumu virus seems to be going on in the chat. But nevertheless, I really appreciate all the support. All of you did smash the super chat. Much love to you all. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Off a description of the Earth from his vantage point, which would be a very, very small vantage point, like the rest of us. Like the average person may have an eye level of 5'5" or 5'8" or something like that. The average man, let's say, would have, and woman maybe 5'4" or 5'5". So that's your vantage point. That's like 5'5", 5'6" above a surface. So Bev saying that he's not a flat earther because he can prove that Earth is not flat because we have hills, valleys, mountains. But that's from his vantage point of 1 second.
While you're getting your 1 second, can I just give a bit of love to Divergent Droid? He's one of my mods, and he persistently will spam the link to the next show, like the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After show. So at the moment, you can probably see it in the chat going by. I've left it on screen for this reason. He's in the chat saying, hey, by the way, on the second channel, Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After show, whatever number it is, 1675. And you're like, oh, man. He asked me once, am I doing a good job? And I was like, job? You've got mod powers. Do what you like. But he was like,
he is the best.
He is brilliant. And he asked me, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to be able to do that, because what you're doing is putting the links to the show. And while I'm obviously hosting a live show, I can't be typically doing stuff in the chat feed, although I do watch it and read from it and shout out the super chats at the bare minimum sometimes. But yeah, I just wanted to give him some love, that was all. Thank you very much, Divergent Droid. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I maybe didn't put that sentiment across in my one-line reply to my email after seeing 24,000 of them. But yeah, thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Can I just retract that compliment, because he calls himself a gamer, but he games on a HDD rather than SSD. So Droid, upgrade your PC. Come on, you're miles behind.
Neil,
can I just finish
modding the other day, mate?
Yeah. Neil was in the middle of a point that he was just getting sirens going past or a loud truck or something. But yeah, games are for girls.
What happened?
I was saying, Neil, you did some good modding the other day, I noticed.
Brian, go ahead, Brian. Clearly my joke ruined the actual trying to get Brian back on track point.
Sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, I'll be quick. My point was with Bev is that Bev is speaking about the Earth as a whole, but from his vantage point, he's seeing hills, valleys, and mountains because he's so small. So the problem with that is that it's a contradiction in terms, because you can't speak about the whole of the Earth when your daily experience of it is from a very, very small vantage point, whereas the whole of the Earth would be huge, and to view all of it, you'd have to have a very, very high vantage point.
I think it's an underhanded ad hom. Yeah, I don't think his stature and size has anything to do with this. I wouldn't accuse him of having a Napoleon complex. That's just
I don't mean it that way. For any of us, we can't describe what the Earth is if we're looking at a mountain, because we are looking at a mountain because we're very small and the mountain is very big. But the Earth is way, way huger than the mountain. So if we're going to describe what
Hold on. You're going way too
describe
fast. Hold on. Just writing this down. Mountain, small, person, big. Have I got that right?
No. Person small, mountain big.
Person small. Oh, I've got to scrub all this out. Sorry, I'm way behind. Should have been taking notes the whole time. It's very hot here.
What if the mountain's far away? Can it then be small?
Oh, you're really confusing me. It's the caveats.
no.
Have I got to write this down in logic terms? If greater than what?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm trying to get this down. Person small, mountain big, and then bloody Adam's thrown my whole note structure off because he's saying
other mountain
if
small.
it's far away, I'm totally lost now. What kind of logic do I put? What symbol do I need to understand this?
Who cares? Neil's a good moderator.
You're not writing shit.
I don't think this is the hill you want to die on.
The next step was mountain is small in comparison to the earth is big.
That's a huge bitch.
He put it into an if
See how easy that was, Nathan?
And there's a song.
Now we've scaled things. Yeah.
Was Brian finished?
Small,
if I can cut Adam off a couple more times, I might get his hackles
than
up. Were you done, Brian?
I'm done completely. That point is totally made. Thanks, Nathan.
I suppose I'll have to give way to Adam then and his bloody rumpusing. Go ahead, Adam.
I was just saying we've got an order then. So people are small, mountains are bigger, and the Earth's bigger than that.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't get it.
Obvious.
Wow.
This is kind of the level we got to kind of dumb this down for the non-globe believers, aka anti-flat earthers.
Well, if you want to have fun, let's start talking about space movies.
Yeah, but seriously.
Yeah, excuse me. I have to say the flat earthers have to hold down with the principle. We don't have to be like them. We just have to be better. We cannot go so low like this spherical personality is doing.
Can I get back on topic?
You're not the boss of me.
What's the shape of a mountain?
No, I was gonna say, Tony, before you go, this was all settled in the '60s. Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough. I mean, come on, it's old stuff.
No,
put
Tony.
my screen on, please, for a sec.
Flat Earth and other hot potatoes, and then an article below it. Go ahead.
Flat Earth and other hot potatoes.
Oh, that's just me sharing that. Sorry.
So when you've been talking about heresy.
Hold on. The comedic value's lost. He is actually going to try and present some information now. Can we all shut up? Seriously.
So when you're talking about heresy and you're talking about like people that are on their side that should be pushing their model but are not pushing their model because like Coriolis, for whatever reason, they mash it all up and we say, well, you're anti-flat earthers because you just hate us. And you're flipping that around and saying, actually, it's heresy because you're not applying what the tenets of your religion actually are. Let's go back to, if you've been in this topic for a while, we'll all be familiar with this imposters thing. It is painful to read that Sir John Gorse, the head of the British Educational Department, is in serious trouble and has been threatened by Mr. Ebenezer Breach, blah, blah, blah. In this article that everyone considers to be satire, it describes the heresy or the heretical doctrine that the Earth is a sphere. I've always took it as not real, not necessarily satirical, but not real because it doesn't make any sense. But the question becomes, well, why does it even exist in the first place? And I'm just wondering, is there a different way that we could perceive this, given that we're now saying that it's heresy if they don't apply their own model? Because I'm just wondering, are the people that wrote this back in the day, are they saying that they're also being heresy? because they were failing to apply the doctrines of their own model in the same way that we're pointing it out now. And perhaps we should change our perspective to how we perceive this article, because the heresy that they're applying in the article seems to be similar to what we're saying is heresy right now with regards to what they're not doing, which is applying their own model. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. It's flipped on its head, because in the article it's describing the heresy that a flat earther would describe the ball as being in relation to the natural world. We're now taking a completely different position and saying the heresy is your non-adherence to the belief in the globe that you should have as a good Western world believer in the globe, as opposed to a flat earther saying the globe's heresy, it's nonsense, it's not the real world. We're saying, you, Simon Dan, you're a heretic. You just have to believe what the globe claims. Doesn't matter if it's real or not. You've got to believe it, and if you don't, you're a heretic. So we've completely flipped it on its head. So it puts a very different spin on this article. And as you say, like with the, I can't remember, it was Oregon State or somewhere like that, an article that was claimed to be parody after the fact, developed this conversation that was fascinating, that has span into us now pointing out this heresy. And now you're saying, well, here's an article that positioned the heresy from a flat earther arguing with the globe as being real, being heresy, versus now us saying they're heretics for just not believing in the globe.
Yeah.
Nathan, can you say something about it before somebody will answer you? Can I say it's not only heresy, it's history just now, today. It's a change to history. I know if it's right to say it in English word, but in my mind, it's history. It's right. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I fear
what's happening.
I fear that you're correct, and I'll tell you why. Because if that is the case, then our purpose in history would be akin to Newton's purpose in gravity, which is to say that objections that become part of the rhetoric or part of the contradictionary doublespeak that we end up reading off from National Geographic or somewhere similar when it comes to Coriolis, well, our objections can be turned into part of the narrative, therefore we go into the history, and history seems to imply that people who object strong enough end up having stuff named after them.
Well, there's a difference in this article, though, because that's a Christian viewpoint pointing out that the heliocentric model doesn't comport with the Christian religion, right? Is that their position?
In the article, yes, it's saying that the claim of a globe is heresy because it isn't in line with what we would believe is the case in terms of the way that the Earth presents. Doesn't matter if it's biblical or not. They're saying the globe's heresy, the claim of it.
Right. Well, that wouldn't be heresy then, because the people that believe in the globe weren't necessarily Christian, right?
Even in their own narrative.
Heresy.
I don't agree with that, John.
Christianity.
Hold on, I had chocolate first. Go ahead, chocolate.
Well, even in their own story, which one of them was the one that got thrown in jail for running around trying to teach people it's a globe? I can't remember. Was it
that was
Copernicus, right?
That was Wallace, wasn't it, in the Bedford Levels experiment?
Yeah. See, I mean, there's even examples that day where people were running around. Everyone
Feeding
seems
back,
to
Sleeping Warrior. Can you mute when
that.
you're not? Hold on. Sleeping Warrior's got a bit of feedback. Can you mute when you're not talking, please, Anthony?
Yeah, it just seems like kind of like what we're talking about today. You know, people accepted the Earth is flat, worked it out like that, and then now here's this person running around telling everybody, "Hey, this flat stationary, place that we live, it's actually a spinning ball," and they threw him in jail.
Right, but that's not heresy.
The heresy.
Well, no, it's not heresy, but it's. Go ahead, Ed.
Just, I'm reading it, and the heresy is this is a C of E heresy. That's what's so within the schools, which would be obliged to stick within the Church of England doctrine. The doctrine would be stating, as Scripture states, that the nature of the earth. So that's the heretical thing, the damnable and heretical doctrine that's being preached. It's against Church of England doctrine. That's why it's heretical.
All right, I agree to that.
Okay, just so we're all keeping up because of that concise explanation from Adam. So it's the juxtaposition between that heresy, which is the Church of England has a certain doctrine which you're supposed to adhere to, and the Globe claim doesn't. We're repositioning that to say, well, that might be the case in 18 whatever. Now we're saying it's the Church of Globe. The current religion is Globe. The current religion is heliocentrism. And the doctrine that you need to adhere to, Simon, Dan, Katz, Professor Dave, is heliocentric doctrine. If you deny heliocentric doctrine, i.e. you start explaining why there isn't any drift, or why we haven't got an Earth curve edge horizon, then you're a heretic, because you're supposed to be complying with the beliefs of the globe and the doctrine of the globe, regardless of whether it's true or not. Likewise, if you're teaching in a Church of England school, you should be teaching the biblical Church of England rhetoric, which the globe isn't in line with. So both are heresy in different ways. Our heresy against the anti-flat earther is because they're just denying the globe's rhetoric. Okay, we all clear?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was the
thing. Anthony, did you have a further point to add on this?
No, it was just on the perspective of how should we perceive that article in a different perspective now, given that we're calling them heretical.
Yeah, it's a mad juxtaposition, like I said at the time. Excellent. And it does put a very different light on some of these old articles, parody or otherwise. It really doesn't matter, given we know the nature of the memory hole, whether it's true or not. It's like, did Aristarchus really exist? Does it matter? It's part of the narrative. Makes no difference if it's made up completely story or not. It's part of the doctrine. So therefore, you take it as read. Now, in the same way, whether or not it's true in terms of something that's later cast down as being parody, or do you investigate whether or not it's parody, or just take it as read and discuss it for its merits, regardless of if it happened or not? It doesn't make any difference to the discussion points it develops.
Yeah, but if you change that to the alternative argument, so for example, the biblical view of Noah building his ark, anybody that's an anti-flat earther will instantly deny that the Bible's got any credibility whatsoever, and they'll say that these are all fictional characters written by man. Well, they use that claim that you've just said, well, does it really matter, to discredit the whole argument straight off the bat. Well, the same should apply the other way, shouldn't it? If Eratosthenes, for example, didn't really exist, then applying their dismissibility criteria, then we should be able to dismiss everything like to do with their model, because they need Eratosthenes to measure shadows.
No, to be a heretic is to deny that story in the Bible, if you're to be called a biblical heretic. So it makes no difference in terms of how you might perceive a different version of the story. The moment you start deviating from the narrative, you're a heretic. Likewise, the moment you start deviating from Earth curve geometric physical limitations at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, a la the curve maths, you're a heretic. The moment you start describing Earth and atmosphere moving together to not cause 15 degrees an hour drift as claimed by the globe, you're a globe heretic.
Yeah, if you actually look at it and go, nah, there's no real bloke in history, it's probably something made up in the Middle Ages.
Heretic.
Then totally.
But why would we want to deny him when he gets one of the best flat earth proofs out there?
Okay, Anthony. Just whoever's distorting in Discord, just give us 1 second. If you take a miracle story, it's much easier to compare it to. So, for example, the burning bush, or man walking on water, Jesus walking on water, right? Miracles. It doesn't matter whether or not they happened. What matters is that you believe and potentially re-preach verbatim that story. So if for the sake of argument you said, well, what Jesus really wanted to do when he walked on water was wow the crowds. So although the story in the Bible describes him as literally walking on water, what he did was a bit like David Blaine. He got all these transparent tubes and set them up just below the water so it looked like he could walk on it when he really was just walking on the tubes and they were supporting him at about water level. It was a clever magic trick. You're a heretic. No. I know you're still saying you believe in Jesus walking on water, but you've repositioned the story. You just got to believe he walked on water.
No.
What's going on? Who's meowing? Someone talking to their cat? Whoever's talking to their pussy, please can you stop it?
No, it's over. Keep on.
Okay. So yeah, you're a heretic the moment you deviate from the story. If you don't believe Jesus walked on water, but you still believe he walked on water with a different explanation outside of the story, then you're a heretic. Doesn't matter that you claim to still believe in the Bible. If you're repositioning the story, you're a heretic. Hope that's clear.
Heresy is heresy, and that's it.
Right. Kind of like how you start. Go on, John.
I was just going to say the important thing to remember about heresy is you have to concede to the authority you're denying for it to be heresy.
That's correct.
Kind of like how we started the show with Globe defenders committing heresy. They don't believe what the Globe claims.
Yeah, and it would require forced attrition to prosecute someone like myself for heresy, because I don't concede to the authority in that regard. But the person who prosecutes me for it would be under the misapprehension that their concession to the authority means that I'm a heretic because I don't agree with their authority. Plenty of witch burnings and such like have taken place as a result of that.
Right, you're more like a heathen, because heathens don't accept the authority of the religion, right?
Well, their version of it. So if you take William Tyndale, he wanted to pass on the Bible to the masses so they all had the knowledge and information that was held within. So he translated it. Well, he was burnt as a heretic. Why? Well, because as far as the church were concerned, it was down to them to disseminate the information, not for the great and washed to be able to read it. That's their power to wield. How dare he translate it? Now, as far as he was concerned, this is God's word and should be available to all. I don't bow down to your authority in your heliocentric... your church belief that you should be the one to disseminate this information. But they did, so he's a heretic, right? A great injustice now written in history. Well, that great injustice is only applicable because the person who is doing the wrong is only believed to be a heretic based on the person who kowtows to that authority. So the people who set fire to him believed the church when they said he shouldn't be giving you God's word in your language. What an outrage. Burn him. Heresy.
Okay. Yeah, Nathan, it's about the difference between belief and knowledge. And heresy is about belief, I think, almost. Maybe something more behind it. But absolutely, belief and knowledge is you have trust for something, but you don't know. But knowledge is that you know. And I know if I use a tape measure and over the water, I want to jump over the water. I measure. Oh, it's 2.5 meters. Okay. I know it's 2.5 meters. And then I have to believe I can jump over the river. I know it's 2.5 meters, but I believe I can jump. Okay, I was successful.
I don't think it's limited to belief and knowledge. I just think you're a heretic.
I don't think he's finished his example yet.
No matter what context you're in.
I don't think he's
if you go against.
I don't think he's finished his example yet.
You have to understand what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe 30 years later, because I believe that 30 years before I was able to jump over the river because I believe I can jump so long. But 30 years later, I was falling down the river and I will die. So you cannot believe something that you believe or you have believed before can bring you to the end of the river or over the river, better to say. So belief and fact and physicality and so on is not the same thing. Yeah, you can say something thanks for the belief. It was bringing you over the other side of the river. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's the,
I do,
the
but
difference between
I think there's a third side to it.
And the belief.
Yeah, sure. I just think there's a third side to it. So you've got you with belief and knowledge, and you're juxtaposing the two. I would say that there's a third prong to the triangle, which is understanding. And you only need two of those things to apply. You don't need the third. So in the case of heliocentrism, you don't need knowledge. What you need is belief and understanding. You need to understand what the globe claims, and you need to believe it. Having knowledge of it actually occurring isn't required. Quite the contrary, you don't need to have knowledge of what it does or doesn't do. You need to understand what it does and doesn't do. Why? Well, because it doesn't actually do those things. Just understand what we say it does and doesn't do. So having a good understanding of the globe is required. And if it doesn't do something that you're supposed to understand it does, you need to have a good belief that it does actually do those things. That's it.
Yeah, but this understanding of
like
fantasy
a legal
is not real.
terminology. Understand in this case, right?
Stand under.
It's just accept
yeah,
it.
stand
just
under.
accept
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Stand under. Stand under the premise that Earth turns beneath stuff to cause 15 degrees an hour of drift to Coriolis effect. What did you say, little
How can you stand
heretic?
under
It
that?
doesn't. And you're going to try and explain to me, the priest, why? No. Understand that Earth has Coriolis. On your way. Dip your toe in the font on the way out. Say 5 Hail Marys.
There's no way out. There's no way out for the globers. There's no way out. How can you stand on something that is nothing? How can you stand on the if you don't have any ground? If you don't have any foundation?
You don't need them. You
There is
need
no way
belief and
out.
understanding.
Drums
I've just
in the
explained this. You don't need that third prong to be a heliocentrist. You don't need any firm foundation to sat on. You don't need any understanding, any knowledge. You just need to stand under what they say it does. Earth falls away from you 8 inches per mile squared. Do you understand?
No, I don't understand that. I don't.
It's a belief. It's not a requirement to understand. It's a requirement to believe it. That makes you a good globe.
Yeah, but in this case, it is understand, but it's just a legal word, understand,
Okay, you have
right?
to stand under their authority.
It's a really neat trick because they basically switch the entire lingo without you even noticing.
Yeah, what do we get told more often than not from our opponents when we defeat their argument in physical terms and reality? You don't
understand.
Understand.
Whether
understand that.
Whether it's religion,
to understand, you need foundation to be able to understand anything.
No, you don't. You just need to listen to the words I disseminate to you and understand them. Earth turns beneath an inertial reference frame at 15 degrees an hour. Do you understand, Johnny? Or don't you?
It's fucking BS, Nathan.
Sorry, do you understand? Do you understand or not?
No.
So you don't understand?
Absolutely no.
Right.
So then they're right when they say we don't understand because we don't stand under what they claim.
Well, hold on. Let me clarify it.
It's a neat trick.
Let me clarify it a little bit because understanding requires a positive claim, right? Or a claim of knowledge and a belief that claim is true. That's how you reach an understanding.
Right. I got it. Alwyn's using the kind of Freeman argument in terms of it just being
legal implications, right? It's a legal word. That's how they use it. They use it like a legal lingo.
Yeah. I don't stand under your authority. Yeah. I don't comprehend.
Well, hold on. But I want to explain why that stands up in reasoning, not by epistemological fallacy. Because understanding, when you know something, you experience it and you comprehend what happened. Understanding requires that you believe the claim and you comprehend it. So there's a difference between understanding and knowing.
Comprehending and accepting. That's basically understanding. But colloquially, everybody thinks understanding means comprehending.
Yeah.
And that's
But
what they
that's
lean
not
on.
what it means.
Yes, that's
But that's
correct.
not what it means.
Yeah, and that's Arwin's point. That's where it's a clever trick, according to Arwin, and I agree.
May I have a moment? Whether it's religion or globe, if you differ from the established rhetoric or dogma, you're a heretic. So when you notice someone saying Scientology or a cult who believes that when they first come in that this is truth, but later finds out that they're not exactly speaking from a position of truth. I found out that what they use has been subverse to, I mean, they're lying to me, so I'm going to come out of this. Those people that are within that same cult will say you're a heretic because you're leaving the established teaching. But you say, yeah, but the established teaching has been messed with and they're not telling us the truth. So I'm leaving because I was lied to. So now when you come to the globe says Earth has 15 degrees of turn every hour. But it's not true. So you need to leave the globe religion system. But if you do, you're called a heretic because that's the established, talking points. But it doesn't vet out, just like a false cult.
Right. So instead of them waiting for the opportunity to be called heretics, I'll just pick up that baton before they've even realised it's been dropped. Yeah, and call Conspiracy Cats and Simon Dan and Professor Dave and Phil B and all the rest of them heretics. Because it's a fact. They don't believe and stand under what the globe is punting.
Yeah,
Right, they just don't understand.
They just don't understand, right, Arwin? That's how I should phrase it. Right. Arwin's on fire today. Just for that, he's going to get a plug. Subscribe today to Arwin. Not only did he catch my attention on his stream, which I do watch typically daily, even if I don't comment, but he caught mine and my wife's attention today. Both simultaneously dropped what we were doing and started listening to Arwin, who was playing in the background and talking about it. And he's been on fire all show. So he's on top form today. Subscribe to Arwin.
He just robbed my thoughts again. That's exactly what I
hold on.
say,
Was it
and he
Brian's
robbed it.
point? I do vaguely remember him coming up with this a couple of weeks ago.
I was on Arwin's show. It was a great show today. Arwin was great.
Thank you very much.
Well, this has happened to me and my this has happened to me and my friends. Being Christian, they'll say, "Oh, you believe in flat Earth? That's heresy. You're a heretic." And I say, "Oh, so you can show me from the Holy Scriptures that the Earth is a globe and it's spinning in space? Then I'll become a baller. Come on." And they don't even bother.
But they also use the word understanding as a point to cause you to concede. So, for example, if they start explaining the ionosphere and that there's this gas layer above you that's taking a shape and bouncing signals, do you understand? Then you're almost compelled to say, yes, I understand, because the explanation is comprehensible, but it's not logical. There's no factual basis in it. But they often use that, do you understand, to just get you to concede and agree with their point.
Right.
Yes, you might understand, but it's not logical. Yes, exactly.
But,
right.
but I don't want Arwin's point to get lost after all that commendation. So what Arwin's saying is flip it straight back in their face. We do know, all of us here, including most people in the Discord server, what the globe claim actually is in almost all instances that we have a housekeeping question for. Ergo, when we come up against our opponents and they start arguing for the sake of argument that there is no drift, conservation of a linear momentum prevents there being any observable 15 degrees an hour drift, we can then just tell them, you don't understand the globe, do you, heretic? Because the globe claims there's Coriolis drift at 15 degrees an hour. I mean, I don't even believe this nonsense, and I understand the globe claim. I understand how the globe claims there's 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth turns beneath stuff not attached, to cause them to seem to take a curved path when they're actually taking a straight one. An illusion that we observe, described by Neil deGrasse Tyson. I do understand what the globe claims. I don't believe that crap. It's total nonsense. We'd have shortened flight times. But you, pathetic globe heretic, do not understand the globe claim of drift, do you? And I'm going to rub that right in their face. Thank you, Erwin. That's the little magic bullet I was looking for to flip this right back on its head. You don't understand, Simon, Dan. You just don't understand the globe, do you, Dan? It's supposed to have 15 degrees an hour drift. You don't understand. And the reason you're showing me guides on trampolines not drifting at 15 degrees an hour is because you don't understand the globe, Dan. Ah, beautiful, Arwin. Thanks very much. Made my day.
You're welcome.
There's one correction. When you said you understood it, you comprehend it. You wouldn't understand it.
I understand the claim.
He said he understands the concept.
I'll use the word in juxtaposition also. I understand the nonsensical garbage not shown to be true claim. I understand that, John.
Right. He said he understood the claim. Right. He doesn't understand it per definition. He understood the claim. So he understands. He basically accepts what the claim is and accepts that that is the claim.
The On Fire, ARWIJN. Subscribe today.
He understands the point. He doesn't stand under the claim.
Nathan, can I say, because you're talking about understand, I understand the 10th man. He has done a Marco very, very good job about the sextant. That is wonderful. No, I know about it. Everything about the fucking sextant. I was wondering if somebody will take it up. Do I really have to do it? And the 10 man come up and give it to us very, very nicely. And I understand, and I will understand the 10 man. I think he is a wonderful man, and I would just say thank you to him. And I hope I will appreciate what he has done, because that's the right way to work and do.
Well, thank you, but we're a team here, so thank the whole team, because it's a combined effort. Brian, Adam, and everybody else.
The glory.
Say I'd like to thank my mother, the Academy.
Well, without my mother, I wouldn't be here, obviously. I'm not going to the root word of this man.
It's my first time, Nathan. I have to thank Tenman. I listened to him. He is wonderful. He has bring it in the front. That's very, very important. And therefore, I have to. Yeah, like I am in the Oscars also. Yeah, I thank fucking Tenman. He is wonderful. I love him.
Well, unfortunately, 10th Man can't be here today to accept this award. So on behalf of 10th Man, I'd like to thank the Academy. I'd like to thank 10th Man's mother and father and his entire extended family and all the support he's had in presenting the information about the flat Earth elevation angle argument. Thank you very much on behalf of 10th Man.
John, John saying, sorry, just let me get clarity with John. John, are you saying that you stand under celestial navigation?
I'm not standing. I'm standing under it. Yes, I am understanding it. Yes, absolutely understanding it.
So am I. Thank you.
It's a very new word. I made a new word, the English word.
Well, we understand it because it took some time to comprehend it, and then when we comprehended it, we figured out it's real, so we understand it.
I want to thank Nathan, since I was very tentative.
The eloquence of Arwin.
I want to thank Quantum Eraser, my mother, the Academy.
I'd like to thank myself a second time.
I agree, Brian. You are ace.
I also want to thank Brian. He came up with all of this nonsense 20 minutes before all of us.
Yeah.
But I mean it. It's my first time. I have to say it. Okay.
Well, that was good.
Nathan's great too. Nathan's pretty good himself.
Got to start blowing the smoke out of our own arse a little bit less. Come on, waft it away, lads. Come on, we can do it.
QE sucks.
Yeah, the language has been a lot more tame without QE today. Let's be honest. Will he pipe up?
Is he there?
You mustn't forget to also apologize to your future self for the hangover you're going to have after you've celebrated your win.
Fair enough. Also, to my future self who might watch this in 5 years from now, for the total stupidity that you have been exhibiting this entire show and for the last 400. I'm so sorry. Whatever it is you found out that shows how fucking idiotic I was right now, I'm so sorry. I wish I'd done that when I was doing the Isle of Man discussion.
Hold on a second. Those shows are
Nathan, you'll
great.
be all right with it because when you figure it out, you'll just look back and laugh, just like we did with the Isle of Man time, right?
Yeah, it was amusing. And like you say, you've got to have that sort of self-assured confidence in the fact that you know why you're wrong to look back and laugh at it. But looking back at them and going, oh my God, hearing myself talk about, well, if Earth's a sphere, then you're going to have the horizon blocking it at this distance, and it's actually blocking it at that distance. So, past Nathan, Earth sphere's blocking that building, is it? You stupid, we all just want to slap yourself, you stupid idiot.
Yeah,
you gotta laugh, haven't you?
But that's not fair because you weren't just holding on to it because you were stubborn, right? As soon as we figured this out and it really started to shine through our consciousness, we adapted, all of us, quickly. We just didn't see it all that time. So it's not fair.
I remember the moment when I realised it.
There wasn't a character flaw preventing you from getting it. It was just not discovering it.
When I first figured that bit out, I felt hugely embarrassed. In the moment, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember feeling hugely embarrassed.
Nathan,
It happens. It happens.
I like to bring a little bit of seriousness to what I said.
Were you not serious before? I didn't detect any humour in the last statement you made.
You guys made light of it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, okay.
Every one of us has contributed something on this panel. Now, the brain trust of the whole panel speeds things up. So whether it's Brian coming up with something or myself or others or Anthony, it doesn't matter who it is, Adam, I don't want to go through the list with everybody. The rest of us say, wow, I see this from that. And then that person starts a little sideways research while the guy who brought it up was maybe having dinner with his family or sleeping.
I see.
Within a week or two, this brain trust, your panel, and the structure of your show, where we try to keep things real to the natural world, we come up with something that take one person, maybe years. We do it in a couple of weeks. That's the beauty of it right there.
By brain trust, you mean quantum eraser, right?
It's like a think tank. We are like a think tank.
No, we are. It's what Armin says.
It is a think tank, yes.
We are a think tank. We keep each other on our toes. We vet each other out. We talk after the show's over. I'm talking to Adam, Brian, others, Bible literates. I say, hey, what do you think of this? And so we go through these filters to make sure what we're doing is right. But then when we come on the show, we've taken what it would take one person maybe a few years to do. We dismantle the whole thing, have a nice understanding of it within a month.
And anybody notice whose name wasn't mentioned in that list?
Who?
Me.
No, you're the show host. You're the show host. You said you're lazy.
You're talking about after the show.
You can't be there in the after show because you drop.
You facilitate the whole thing.
Hey, Nathan, do you know I am John Bernard because I am Johnny on the Discord? Do you know that?
Did I know you were Johnny on the panel because you're Johnny on the Discord?
Yeah, I follow you many years now, John Bernard.
Oh, okay.
We all know who you are, John. We know you.
Yeah. Well, like, for example, let me just reach out to refracted curvature here.
You don't think I am somebody that don't know what you're doing? I know what you're doing, man. I'm looking at you all the time. So.
I appreciate that now, but obviously, first time you hear someone's voice, I just have to take it as I don't know who they are or what they are, and you can't. I've made the mistake in the past of making assumptions about people, but I appreciate that now. And yeah, I think was it Brian just said, yeah, we know who you are.
Okay, that's fine.
Last but not least, refracted curvature took the whole elevation angle and showed us how you can make his kitchen into a sphere. That was beautiful.
Yeah, think about it. How is it possible?
Hold on, he was going to thank the Academy. Go ahead, John.
In all fairness, I stole that from the Globe.
Just to let you know, there are a ton of ball turds in here and chat skanking prolifically. just to let you know.
Globe deniers.
Wow.
Bring him in.
What's new?
Heretics,
My
come on.
hero.
The Coriolis effect got their panties in a bunch.
Coriolis. I know everything about
As
it.
it should.
I love your show. You make 2 shows of Coriolis. That was good because the first show was not taking everything, clarify everything. But the other show, you were talking with Betty all the time and so on. So it was not, it's all over the place. But
the hell are
it was
you
about
talking
the
about?
non-necessary.
There's a fighting word.
Just how's the chiggers,
What the
mate?
hell? You're all over the place. Not my show.
Told you.
What about the heretics in chat? What are you saying? There's heretics in chat?
He didn't say that. Chat
I
skanks,
think he
said.
means a conversation in between. That's all. He wants to
hold
hear
on,
the
hold on.
business.
Let's just calm our horses. 10th man. Can't just claim heresy off the bat, right? Let's just get that. We're going to draw a line under that immediately, right?
Hang on. QE came and said that there's people in chat got their skirt up about Coriolis. Now, either they believe the Earth is turning or they don't. Are they heretics? Or
So
what?
there's an either or hanging over your claim of them being heretics. Then I think we're all clear.
Yeah,
Well,
belief.
if the globe claims the Earth is turning and they claim it's not, they're heretics.
Do you hear the pitch of his voice, ladies and gentlemen? That pitch denotes understanding that he's still fighting against.
What pitch?
My point's been made. There's an either or. They might not be heretics. You can't rule out the idea that someone comes in and goes, yeah, Earth turns underneath stuff to cause Coriolis deflection at 15 degrees an hour. Ultimately, you would have mislabeled that person. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there's a 1 in 1 million chance that's going to happen.
Okay, look, I don't know fallacies like the rest of you, but that sounds like an appeal to the future of something that hasn't happened yet. So why don't we see? Excellent.
Just because it hasn't doesn't mean it can't. And given that the claim that would have to be violated to make them a heretic is the normie claim that the majority of the Western world do believe and must believe to be called a globe believer, it is not unreasonable to not preemptively label them as heretics. Might have a normie in there.
We have to be careful, 10th, because if you're going to do that, right, you lose the power because nobody should expect the Globe Inquisition. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I would like to call my first witness, Quantum Eraser. Are you here?
Everyone missed Adam's joke. Yeah. I like it though, Adam. I like it.
Okay, my first witness, Quantum Eraser. Did you or did you not come and say that in the chat there are people all ruffled up about the Coriolis?
Yes.
Okay. My second question to you is, if they come on the show, would we or would we not know where they stand on the subject?
To then call them heretics. Yeah, my point's been made already 3 times.
Is your name Quantum Eraser?
No, but you're subverting my point by asking him a question, and I've made my point 3 times, and I'll make it through this subversion. I do this daily.
I object. You're interfering the questioning of a witness.
Check it out, he's claiming rumpusing. I love it. Oh, I love it.
Contempt of court.
Yeah, I object.
It's good.
So there's only one way to find out if they come on the show.
What if your claim of heresy is right or not?
Correct.
Johnny, can you pop yourself on mute? You're tapping away over the top of 10th man's.
No, I was just rolling my cigarette. Excuse me, it's over.
All right, so I stand.
I was going to say it sounded like a Dare commercial.
So if they don't come on, then silent means consent. I'm right.
Should I
what
point out this
happens when
fallacy?
you don't come up to show when you don't come to show up on court, right? When you're being called.
This isn't court.
What I'd like to have happen.
Yeah, you
one
just
of these
don't
people,
understand, Nathan.
Brian, go ahead.
What I'd like to have happen is one of these people come in and define the difference between a vertex and an angle. How many lines does a vertex have? How many lines does an angle have? Because they're continually mixing up the two. As they keep claiming angles only have 2 lines. That's a vertex. An angle is 3 lines, 3 straight lines.
I don't know.
Say again?
What Brian's saying is, if you take an angle, you've got the point of vertices, and you've got the point at the end of the baseline, and you've got the point at the end of the adjacent. Just agree with me, Brian, just so people know I'm not misrepresenting you.
Yeah, okay, Nathan. Yeah.
Right, that's 3 points on 2 lines so far. Vertices to point at the top of the adjacent, vertices to the point along the top along the baseline. Right, that's 2 lines, 3 points. But you've also got the point from the top of the adjacent to the bottom of the baseline. That's 3 lines.
You're talking about the hypotenuse. Top of the hypotenuse.
What did I say?
3 sides.
Did I say adjacent? I meant to say hypotenuse. Just let me correct myself. Yeah, I meant to say hypotenuse. Just to substitute where I said adjacent for hypotenuse.
Are you saying angle or triangle, Brian?
I was going to get there after Brian had his chance, but Adam's already way ahead of me. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. How do you take an angular size measurement without the opposite side? How do you do an elevation angle measurement without the opposite side?
No, I'm not having that. No, that's not what you said. You said angle.
Yeah, angles are 3 lines.
You said angle. Now you've introduced elevation angle, which is something else. It includes angle.
I said angular size measurement, and then I said elevation angle.
Your claim. I'll repeat your claim back to you. Your claim is an angle needs 3 lines. That's your claim.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wrong. Elevation angle, when you substitute it, would require it because you're measuring to the point GP below the point at the top of the hypotenuse. So therefore, that requires 3 lines. Not an angle. An angle's 2 lines.
You can only draw the other line if you actually give that, let's call it the star, a position. You're not really drawing a real line, but that is a creation of a triangle, but it's not required to create the angle for it because the position is just the end of the line. But all you need for celestial is just the angle measurement.
Or to put it another way, Brian.
Where you use.
Just put it another way. If all angles had 3 lines, then we wouldn't have the word triangle, i.e., 3 angles. An angle would be a triangle, but it isn't.
No, a triangle is a shape, Nathan. It's a way of describing that shape.
Right, but when you've got 3 lines, you've got 3 angles.
What? It's like we are talking about in the main show. Is it a triangulation, or is it about measuring angle and go into the almanac to get the?
Let me ask the question now.
Right.
One second. Nobody's gonna go.
Go on, Brian. That's the question. Rephrase your question, Brian. Go ahead.
The question I have then for people who disagree with me is: give me an example where an angle is used in reality and only 2 lines are used.
Perfect, I will. Okay, so if you've got a sextant and you're looking at a ship and you establish your baseline with the horizon, would you agree that point 1 is the horizon, point 2, the vertices is you holding the tool, and point 3 is a celestial item that could be potentially beyond the horizon? Would you agree?
No.
Why not? That's what you do.
You're forgetting about the zenith from the GP. That is the opposite side of that.
But what you're referencing, yeah, no, I'm not forgetting it. Far from it. It's my point. Once you've got the zenith at the GP, does that meet the point that you made the first angle with, given that you measured it using the horizon?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. The GP could be miles beyond the horizon.
Yeah, but you can't see where the GP is. The horizon is.
So therefore. The baseline
doesn't have any particular location. You can't.
Hold on.
You have to presume that.
Hold on,
your
Brian.
horizontal line is. Hang on. You can't stop the adjacent line of the elevation angle at the horizon. You don't know how far away the horizon is. The whole point of the adjacent is that it goes past your visible horizon.
I agree. That's good point. Hold on. That's my point. Hold on. My point is, the point you are measuring, if I draw out an orthographic view of a boat, and the guy's got a sextant on the boat, and he's making an angle measurement to a celestial item. We're going to say the sun. And just for the sake of discussion, we're going to say that the sun is over a piece of land that's 1,500 miles away. Are we all clear so far what he's doing? Sun's over a GP 1,500 miles away. What's he measuring? Well, he's got two things he's sighting, one of which is the horizon. That ain't 1,500 miles away, but it's still a point on his two angles. So the one line extends out to the horizon. You're saying to do the maths, you've got to have a flat plane. That's our argument, in essence, that extends beyond the horizon. But the 2 points that you are, in fact, looking at do not make a triangle. They only make it when you extend the 1 point you are actually measuring beyond it as a completely flat baseline, i.e. proving flat Earth. But the point you're measuring is closer in reified distance than the point you're measuring in the sky when it comes to the horizon versus the celestial item. Ergo, those two lines, at the point you're measuring them, do not make a triangle. They don't have the third line. And in application terms, if you drew a line from the celestial item in orthographic view, if you assumed its height, down to the point you're actually measuring, you wouldn't have a right angle triangle either. You'd have a sort of sail shape tipping back on itself.
Yeah, and that's what you
Nathan,
do.
it came to the 90 degrees.
Hold on, guy in Discord. Hold on, I want to hear Brian.
Sean,
Hello, I want to hear Brian's response. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, what you're forgetting, Nathan, is that that's what you are describing there is a not right angle triangle. Right? When you do height of y correction, you create the right angle triangle, which moves that point out to out to the GP of the celestial body. The horizon.
Okay, can I just stop you just 1 second?
To create a horizontal.
Just want to stop you 1 second, Brian.
But
that's an elevation angle, though, isn't it?
Hang on. The line from that you make to the horizon is also going to the celestial body. You make it to the horizon, then it goes up celestial body and celestial body back to you. So it's not a right angle triangle; it's an obtuse angle, right? So it's not usable for that purpose. You have to make the right angle. That's why they do the.
I appreciate that, Brian. I just make my objection one more time, Brian. I get all that, but what you're detailing is an elevation angle now, whereas when I just use the sextant, a tool for measuring an angle, and point it at two things, horizon and celestial item, that's just measuring an angle, isn't it?
Yeah, but that angle has three sides.
No, it doesn't.
The third side is from the horizon to the celestial body, even if it's not a right angle triangle.
What if I don't?
Hold on, Adam. I'll ask you a question then, Adam, instead of Brian. Right, I think he's got me. I just don't want to concede if he hasn't. So far, I've got my point out to the horizon, and in a orthographic view, we're going to have the boat, and an inch away from the boat is the horizon that we've levelled our tool with. So point A is only an inch away from the boat. And then on the furthest side of the page that you can fit it, I'm going to put the sun, right? Now, what Brian's now saying is when I said, no, that does form a triangle, but it would be in the shape of a sail. So Brian's response is, that's still a triangle, though, isn't it? So therefore, that angle still has three sides. Has he got me? Has he won?
No, because that's a triangle, right? So you can take the angle. The angle is two straight lines at a vertex. That's what an angle is, right? You can have an open angle, can't you? They don't have to meet. They don't have to have a purpose that you have to draw the two end points up or turn it into a 90 degree and do something else with it, which will create a triangle. You can just have your angle. Yeah, you can just have an angle, and there's no requirement for that joining up, that intersection. You could take another line through it.
Adam, can I say something in between? You can keep on, and after that, I have to say, it sounds like we have an elephant in the room, because you never know the distance, because we have no distance, but we can make our 90 degrees anyways. That is difficult for people to understand, because the instrument, the sextants, take the sun down to the horizon, and the horizon is distance.
Let's take it off.
Like a But you can make 90 degrees of it. That's stuff that people don't understand.
Celestial navigation, John, right? And just cut a cake up, okay? If I'm going to cut a cake, I'm going to give each person 30 degrees of cake. So I go and I draw 2 lines, 2 knife marks cut through the cake. The cake's a round cake. There's no significance to the joining up of those, the other 2 points.
I'm not following. I don't follow on this cake.
Just one angle, 2 straight lines meeting at a vertex.
Good example. Cake, Brian.
A cake, that's the slice of a cake you're talking about. So, but but the cake has one rounded edge.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of your argument.
There's no angle. There's no triangle. It's not a triangle, is it? The rounded edges.
It's not a triangle. Exactly. As I said before, it's not a triangle. It's about angle and it's about on time. It's time because everything is moving. Exactly. Therefore, you cannot triangle something that is moving all the time. Right?
So can we just conclude? Are we all agreed now in this basic premise of geometry, which is that 2 straight lines make an angle?
Not really, no.
When they come together, yeah.
I love Brian.
If it's chocolate cake.
I understand your points.
If they're not parallel and if they come together, then they do.
I hate Arwin. He always interrupts at the worst time. Never subscribe to him.
What's the matter with vanilla cake?
Go on, hold on.
I think
the one
there
making
is
this
an elephant
argument.
in the room.
You're all making it difficult for Brian. Hello.
Okay, come on.
If I want to define the vertex of an angle, will I be talking about 2 straight lines?
Yes.
Right. So what makes that different from the angle then?
That is the angle.
But it's not the vertex.
The vertex is where they meet, and the angle. But a vertex doesn't have to be 2 straight lines. But you do need 2 straight lines.
But that's
an angle. You can have a vertex with curves, couldn't you? But then no angle.
Yeah, but you're not listening to what I'm saying.
My example of the other 2 sides on the cake.
Sorry, I say it again.
I don't like this fucking cake. Can you use something? I don't talk about
1 second,
cake.
John. Let me respond to Adam there a sec. The vertex of an angle, right? If you're talking about an angle, and I did say angle specifically because I know you can have a vertex with 2 curved lines. The vertex of an angle is 2 straight lines. So how do I define that vertex differently from that angle? The only way I could make define them different would be the 3rd line of the angle.
Straight lines, Brian. Straight lines.
But you're missing the point again. I'll say it again, John. The vertex of an angle, which is 2 straight lines meeting at a point. How do I define that vertex from the angle then? If the angle is just 2 straight lines meeting at a point.
The angle.
Because like Nathan said, it's a 2-dimensional. It's a two straight lines that has to be understood.
Well,
So
I'll tell you.
it is.
The way you define the difference
We are not.
angle and
The code.
straight
It's not
line.
about the 3-dimensional space.
John,
if we are measuring,
Johnny
it's
B.
two-dimensional space. Is this right? I'm just working this out. Like Nathan said before, it's about 2-dimensional space, coordinate space that we are working out. Is it right? Is it wrong?
John, do you want to go?
Yeah, it's came in last. Yes, go.
Never mind.
Is it about like Nathan said? It's not about free space. It's about 2-dimensional space, coordination, and we know that nothing can be wrong about that. If you really think about it, how can you live in a 3-dimensional space and have to take a think about everything around us in a 2-dimensional space? It sounds wrong. It doesn't sound. It doesn't sound.
Okay. Well, you've segued nicely away from Brian, because all we were trying to get Brian to concede to is that you don't need need 3 straight lines or 3 lines for an angle. You only need 2. Brian's moved on to, well, if you've got 2 straight lines meeting at a point which you would call a vertex, and you can have a vertex with 2 curved lines, what's to distinguish the point that 2 straight lines meet from a vertex, if that's all it is? I think that's his question.
Yeah, that was it. It's just how do I distinguish those 2 things differently if they're both the same thing, using 2 lines?
Yeah, on the paper you only need 2 lines.
Johnny B, hold on, Brian. Yeah. Johnny B, you can't just start launching straight through the middle of someone else in the middle of a thought.
My bad.
Okay.
I'm just so exciting. I'm just thinking too much. I'm really.
That's all right.
I'm not alone here. Okay.
That's okay.
I understand.
Don't worry.
If we describe it as the angle at the vertex, Brian, reconcile that it's the same thing. It's the vertex is just the point, and then the angle is how we describe the shape of that meeting.
Yeah, you could do it that way then. If you want to say that the vertex, it doesn't describe the angle. You could say that, and the angle doesn't. I don't know, but it's just they seem to be exactly the same thing in a description. 2 straight lines meeting at a point doesn't define them differently. In my head, they don't anyway. Now, I'll accept I'm wrong if I'm wrong, but
a vertex and an angle. An angle, it's like the bug versus insect fallacy. All bugs are insects, but not all insects are bugs. You got it?
That's what I was just thinking. Kind of. Like you could have the vertex, but not all vertices have angles. If you've got a vertex of 2 curved lines, obviously there's no angle because the angle is 2 straight lines, right?
If we go back to the cake, like I said, you've got your angles at the centre.
Hold on, just one second, Adam. Johnny B, can you pop yourself on mute because you're causing a crazy noise with your mic left open? Thank you.
No problem.
That's okay. Just if you knew, you don't know. But yeah, if you leave your mic open, we're just getting this really deep, bassy feedback noise. It's really weird. But now you've closed it, it's good. Thank you. Go ahead, Adam.
So just to go back to the analogy of the cake, and we're going to describe vertices and angles. At the centre, where we cut the slice, we've got an angle where 2 straight lines meet at a vertex. On the edge of the cake, where it's rounded, we've got 1 straight line and a curved line. So we don't get an angle, but we still have a vertex at that point of intersection.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I said, right? You could have a vertex with 2 lines, either straight or curved, but you don't have an angle unless both those lines are straight.
yeah, I understand that point, but my point being the distinguishment I was talking about. I don't know if distinguishment is a word even. I just maybe made that up. But the point I was making is that how do I distinguish between the vertex of an angle and the angle if they both have 2 straight lines? Because the vertex of an angle won't have curved lines, it'll have straight lines. But the angle, if it's described as 2 straight lines, you're basically describing a vertex.
No, you're not.
A vertex
you're not.
I don't know.
Because a vertex has other descriptions of lines that aren't straight meeting it. So while 2 straight lines meeting at a point will be a vertices, it doesn't mean, like the ballers are trying to imply when they use that argument, that a vertices will have 2 straight lines, therefore an angle acquirable from it. So if you've got a vertices, it could have curved lines meeting. That's their argument currently, or it was when I released that video last week.
Yeah, but I'm talking specifically about the vertex of... Sorry, Chocolate, go on, I'm talking a second.
No, it just sounds like you can only distinguish it based on what lines you have meeting at the vertex. If they're straight, then you have an angle.
There you go. That's concise enough for me. So, QE, what precisely are they getting their panties in a twist about, Coriolis? Do you know?
I just sat back down again. Not one in particular aspect. Most of them are actually in BC, if I didn't express that correctly. So some of the chat kanks are NVC right now.
I don't know what that means.
You don't know what their NVC right now means?
NVC.
Yeah,
Oh,
voice channel.
chat.
That means they're on your show.
Oh, I didn't know. Sometimes the abbreviations catch me out.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Did you say your show's on NBC?
He means they can hear us.
Did you think
pop
that
on.
they were Viet Cong?
That's kind of what flashed. I don't know how you read my mind, but that is kind of what I heard. Neil's gonna, that is kind of.
That was funny.
Nathan was saying.
Maybe I'll get to answer you
But
eventually.
Nathan was saying that. Forget it.
Yes, that's precisely what went through my head, QE. I don't know how you read my mind in that regard. Yes, exactly that.
Charlie in the trees.
Viet Cong.
Sorry,
I
Ted.
just have to say, QE is the man you really want to argue with if you have something against him. No, I'm not saying I'm against him. I say if you have something that he maybe cannot say something against. He is brilliant. He is so
Any
strong.
of the globe believers, stated that way purposely. Globe believers want to tell us all about this Coriolis effect. That's the globe claim.
Or show it happening.
Or that.
If the globe believers want to show us it happening.
Talk about it if you did that. You could just show
Your
it.
favorite pilot is in here.
Ooh, Mr.
How
Pilot.
many pilots do we have
goody.
here inside QE?
Hold
How many
on.
pilots do we have?
I see one. Well, self-purported.
The
Oh,
heretic.
shit, guys.
He doesn't understand
Oh,
Coriolis effect.
yeah, we have one.
There you go, 10th. Now you can claim heresy. Got that pilot guy who doesn't understand, thinks that craft can have the instruments accounting for illusions. Just a heretic.
All right. So there we go. We got one. Now let's give him a chance to explain himself before we say he's going against the globe doctrine.
I see.
He's chat skanking right now saying, not an illusion, Nathan.
So, yeah, again.
Can Mr. Pilot come on and tell us what the name of the instrument is that accounts for
No, Chocolate. No,
apparent
no.
deviation?
10th man specifically wants to know why he doesn't believe in the globe. Maybe he doesn't understand. We do understand and can explain it to him.
Yeah, the globe claim is that Earth is turning underneath, which is the cause of Coriolis, Earth base. So he's going against it.
Yeah. But is it a hillbilly blue
Johnny.
spinning ball? Is he pilot?
Johnny, we're trying to catch the attention of someone else, but every time there's an opportunity for that person to catch the fly that we're casting out, you're talking. No offence.
Again.
You're catching the fly that we're casting out.
The gentleman pilot's name is Ostentatious. He's up there, up at the top, Nathan.
Ostentatious. Okay. So
I was just pointing out he's a pilot.
Yeah, we've just asked you to not do that, Johnny.
So
God, Johnny, please. Please.
Johnny, just relax. Cool out for him. Get a Coke and a smile.
He's excited.
Okay, I get that, but so ostentatious. We've already established you don't think the globe illusion of Coriolis at 15 degrees now. You don't believe in the globe. I mean, you don't understand the globe. I mean, it's nice that you don't believe in the globe either. Maybe we can explain where you don't understand what the globe claims if you don't believe in the illusion at 15 degrees now called Coriolis effect. We can explain the globe and how you should believe that nonsense that doesn't happen. So we'd like to educate you in what you, the heretic who doesn't believe the globe, needs to understand about the globe illusion called Coriolis effect. Yeah, we don't need you barking at us about your singular, not the Western world belief without anybody behind you in that nonsense. We just need you to understand what the globe does actually claim about its illusion you will observe as you turn beneath things called Coriolis. You don't understand the globe claim? Ostentatious? You don't understand. The globe's claiming an illusion called Coriolis effect. You don't understand that. Why aren't you in line with the Western world belief that there's an illusion called Coriolis effect at 15 degrees an hour? Why don't you understand as all those other globe believers believe? Why don't you understand? We're intrigued. 10th man wants to know why the heresy. Why are you telling us about not an illusion? What, not 15 degrees an hour Coriolis effect illusion as claimed by the globe? Why are you a heretic? Why don't you believe the globe? Why aren't you answering us, heretic? Do you need burning?
Tar and feathering.
Psychologically, we're fascinated in why you don't believe what the globe's claiming. That's an illusion called Coriolis effect that you're denying. We want to know why you don't believe the globe.
Come on, ostentatious. You're here, right? Let's just get it over with. Nah. Just tell us again how it's not an illusion when your globe claims it is one. Just say it.
We're fascinated to hear third-party points of view. There's the globe point of view, that there's an illusion called Coriolis observable at 15 degrees an hour from a turning Earth. That's one point of view. There's our point of view that globe claim of 15 degrees an hour illusion would shorten flight times because to see the illusion we'd be turning beneath aeroplanes. And there's a third perspective, your perspective on your own alone without the Western world behind you. Heresy against the globe. Because you say you're conceding to the globe faith. You pretend to be a globe believer, but you're not. You've got this third position of it not being an illusion, some nonsense you on your own have come up with against the globe claim of an illusion called Coriolis effect. And we want to know why you've got this very interesting third position that isn't the globe claim of Coriolis. That illusion you'll see if you're turning beneath things that would shorten flight times. Why have you got this new position that's not a globe belief? You're going to tell us? We're fascinated by your singular, on-your-own belief that it's not an illusion caused by a turning Earth beneath things not attached, as claimed by the globe. Tell us about your new position that nobody else has. Come on, we're all really excited. We open the doors for people to give their views on the nature of Earth. Just because the Western world isn't behind you in your non-belief in the illusion called Coriolis effect, doesn't mean you can't share your batshit insane non-globe belief with us. Non-illusion, you say. Tell us all about the non-illusion that the globe's claiming will happen. Come on, we're interested.
Nathan, can I say something?
Are you the pilot we're enticing with this fly, or have you jumped out the pond and grabbed the fly again?
No. Just about the Coriolis. Everybody's talking about the hurricanes and so on. They think that has something to do with Coriolis.
Heresy. Heresy. Yeah, Coriolis effect is an observed effect that you will see if you're turning beneath things on a non-inertial turning reference frame. Nothing to do with hurricanes. That's heresy. Because it's an illusion that you see as you turn beneath things. So again, why are you talking about this actual effect of hurricanes? That's definitely not Coriolis illusion. Why are you interested in telling people about hurricanes when that's not the globe claim of Coriolis illusion? Tell us all about your new exciting...
People don't understand actual. What is that?
That's
something
actual
that is
turning
moving
hurricanes.
in reality. That is doing that. That is something that is happening. And why is this happening? We have to also answer why it's happening. It's because of the temperature and so on. It's a tropical effect and so on and so on. Has nothing to do with Coriolis at all, because it can happen in all directions.
So Johnny V, so what you're saying, what you're trying to say is hurricanes are actual winds that actually rotate, as opposed to an apparent rotation caused by you being on a rotating surface observing something that's not rotating. So that illusion could never create an actual storm with actual winds that are actually rotating. Is that what you're saying?
has nothing to do with illusion. Has nothing to do with illusion. It's actual movement that you can absolutely
rotation. Yeah. Hurricanes are actual rotational things with actually curving paths in a circle. Okay? Well, that's heresy, because the globe claims an illusion of not actual drift, things that look like they're drifting but aren't really. So that's heresy. Talking about hurricanes. No. They don't understand. Because if they understood the illusion of things seeming to drift when it's just you turning beneath them, then they'd understand that actual curved paths of winds aren't globes' claim of Coriolis, because that's an illusion of things seeming to drift. So they're heretics. Talking about actual spin directions? No. Coriolis is an illusion you see only because you're turning beneath stuff. It's supposed to be the thing that proves you're turning beneath stuff. You know, that's what the Coriolis is. I don't know why you're babbling on about stuff actually rotating in the inertial reference frame. You're supposed to be observing it seem to drift as you turn beneath. Heresy.
I have a silly question. These tornadoes.
I have to ask him before you can ask me after me. I will just say, they always go in the same direction. Do you think that is right? All hurricanes is going right
It
to
doesn't
left?
matter, John. John, it doesn't matter whether it does or doesn't. It doesn't matter. It's not.
Exactly.
It's not connected to Coriolis. So that point doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Don't
but
get into the weeds
that
of
is
that.
the argument that they are giving us, okay? Therefore,
It's not connected to Coriolis, so it doesn't matter how many directions they go. They're actually doing something. That's what the claim is. And Coriolis is a not actual deflection.
I think the point they're making from the G+ panel is, once you found out that they're heretics and they're actually going against the globe's claim of an illusion only observable as you turn beneath things, once you find out they're talking about actual spin directions of hurricanes, you just point out that they're a heretic. Why don't you believe in the illusion of Coriolis effect? Shouldn't you, the globe believer, actually a heretic, just be describing how things seem to drift because you're turning beneath them, as opposed to arguing about their hurricane example? Just point out that it's heresy and ask them why they don't believe in the globe.
Yeah, that's the new stance, right?
Okay.
I posted.
Then I ask Nathan another question. What is the hovering in the English?
Johnny.
What is hovering?
Johnny.
If something is hovering, what is the meaning of hovering?
Johnny, you're talking through everybody.
You're a mic hog, Johnny.
Come on, stop now.
I don't like this guy anymore.
Johnny, relax.
I am just talking with Nathan. I'm talking over you. I'm not talking over Nathan. I'm talking with Nathan.
Check it out. It's okay to talk over you, just not talk over me.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I've got an audio clip of another heretic in Master B, if you would like to play that real quick for a comedy skit.
Master B.
He should be in there.
While I'm finding it, can you give us a
Kosher
preamble?
Cyclone.
You know what it is. Oh, we just blew it up.
It was fun.
No.
What's up,
that's
man?
chocolate. The chocolate. What were you talking about? Which argument or what you said you destroyed me?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kosho, but you once declared that the rotating hurricanes were actually going in a straight line. They just appeared to rotate because we were on a rotating reference frame.
It's 100% true that the winds are going in a straight line.
And
there's no reason for them to travel.
Was it lying, guys?
No reason for them to travel in a circle on their own. So the Earth is rotating. But when they start off their travel, they're going north or south, depending on. So the high pressures are going to go towards the south.
Say winds all go in straight line.
It's 100% true that the winds are going in a straight line.
Wow.
OMG.
Yeah. So proving the point, beautiful timing, by the way. Thank you, Chocolate. So the point being that Coriolis effect is the illusion of things in the inertial reference frame seeming to curve when they actually go in a straight line. So for that example to translate and still be the illusion of them curving to hurricanes, Kosho has to do the two-step and say that the hurricane is actually going in a straight line, but because I'm on a non-inertial turning reference frame claimed to be a spinning ball Earth, I'm turning beneath the straight path of the hurricane for it to seem to be spinning around and around. It just looks like it's turning around because I'm seeing it appear to turn because I turn underneath. Now that means his example then falls in line with Coriolis deflection, i.e. an apparent deflection of the straight winds because you're turning beneath them, but falls out of sanity and reality because hurricanes aren't moving in a straight path for them to be juxtaposable into the example of not actual deflection. That would be Coriolis effect. And when you try and make a hurricane examplable with Coriolis, you end up claiming that the fucking wind's going in a straight line to make it seem like it's an illusion of moving in a curved one. No. Winds actually curve around, therefore not an illusion from a turning reference frame.
Looks
Thanks,
pretty
Chocolate.
circular to me, hurricanes and tornadoes.
So not an illusion of a curved path then? Not Coriolis effect then?
Yeah, and remember, he said that because I asked him why do these hurricanes appear to be rotating from the inertial reference frame, not from the non-inertial. Why hurricanes are usually depicted from above, right? That would be the inertial reference frame. Why are they rotating when you're saying that the rotation is caused by an illusion seen from the non-inertial reference frame,
Very
which is the
clever.
ground?
So Chocolate just knows this argument inside out, back to front, to the point where he can pose the question to somebody who also knows the question that's being asked. Kosho, not a stupid guy. When he asks, why is it rotating from the inertial reference frame, right, Chocolate? Wink, wink. Well, from the inertial reference frame, the observation cannot and will not and won't have any perceivable deflection, because the item's deflection is only an illusion observed because you turn beneath. So when you ask Kosho, well, why is it observed from the inertial reference frame? Oh, it's because the wind's actually going straight. You're like, you batshit insane idiot. From the inertial reference frame or any reference frame, hurricanes spin. It's not that they're appearing to spin because Earth's turning beneath them, but that's what he's got to say when Chocolate very cleverly asks him, well, why spinning from the inertial? Well, actually not spinning, just going straight from the no.
Yep, it was one of the best answers I ever got.
It seems like he just doesn't understand Coriolis effect.
No, like the guys in Discord. The guys in Discord don't understand it either.
Yeah.
They think it's not an illusion. They've got this singular, outside the Western world view of heliocentrism, ideas of their own. Heresy. Not in line with drift caused by turning reference frames beneath inertial reference frames. They just don't understand in the Discord server. Not very good ball believers claiming this heresy here.
To be or not to be? That is the fucking
This Johnny.
Do you want us to educate you? Guys, we're happy. Although we don't believe in the globe here, we understand it. You know, you guys don't even understand the religion you think you're part of. You've got to be careful. You're actually heretics. So you
Hold
want
on.
us to help you out
We
and
don't
explain
understand the globe. We understand the globe claim. Be very
we
careful.
understand the globe claim that they don't believe in. So, given that you don't believe in the globe's claim of drift, would you like us to educate you on it?
So when they told us we didn't understand, they were really saying, you don't understand my version of what the globe claims, as opposed to actually what the globe claims.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Indeed.
while they stand alone without the Western world behind them.
Was that a recording?
I thought that was your strength. Wasn't that the strength that, most of the world believes this, you guys are nuts. And then when you debate it, it's like, nah, I'm not with them. I'm over here. I got my own claims. What? How does that work? Clowns.
Maybe we'll get a response from Dan on it. I've mentioned him enough times. I mean, seriously, Dan, we're asking the question quite specifically. Why don't you believe in Coriolis effect? Why are you, on your own, away from the Western world belief, contradicting it, you heretic? We want to know. You know, examples of men not drifting at 15 degrees an hour, you know, that's very clearly heresy. And we just want to know why you haven't got the Western world belief like everyone else. I think that deserves an answer. I mean, at the very least, your subscribers would expect an answer, because they all believe in the globe. They all believe that the Earth's got Coriolis effect. But you're throwing out examples that don't have any drift, let alone 15 degrees an hour caused by Earth turning beneath them. So why don't you believe what the Western world believed, Dan? We're genuinely intrigued to know the answer.
And that was even worse. That was heresy on video.
Osho were here, I would ask him if he believes in satellites, and if he said yes, does he believe that the supposed satellite imagery show hurricanes actually spinning outside of the Earth reference frame? And if he's saying that air is straight and that the spin is caused by Earth rotation, then why did the supposed satellite imagery show the hurricanes rotating?
The question I asked him, that's why he made that response. Because I asked him, when we see these hurricanes, right? Usually we see them from up above. You call it satellite imagery, whatever you want to call it. It's from up above. That would be the inertial reference frame. But they're rotating from the inertial, where you would only see that from the non-inertial. That's the ground. So why do they appear to be rotating from up above, Kosho? Response, hurricanes move in straight lines. Yeah. Enjoy that.
But then the imagery from above would show them moving in straight lines.
Exactly.
It's a non sequitur answer.
That's why he had to say it. He had to defy reality in order to make it make sense. In other words, to see Coriolis effect described in a hurricane, it would be you turning beneath it to see it look like it takes a curved path. That's what Coriolis is. So when asked, well, why is it spinning from the inertial reference frame? His answer, his only logical choice, is to say, it's not. It's travelling straight. It isn't. It's obviously spinning. It's just nonsense. But that's the dance they have to do, because it doesn't make any sense. We're not seeing things seem to drift because we turn beneath them. So they'll take an example of something actually spinning and call it Coriolis. Wrong.
It's like when they say planes fly backwards.
Yep, similar stuff. You take them to that logical conclusion at the end. Exactly.
That's the same level. Yep.
Yeah, high level stuff from chocolate. Exactly. A good comparison. To take somebody to the point where they're saying that planes will literally fly backwards, stuttering around it while they say it, is hilarious, but it takes quite some skill. And to get somebody to say that a hurricane's actually travelling in a straight path does take a lot of skill and understanding of what Coriolis effect actually is. And position the question to somebody who also clearly knows what it is and the implications, for them to have to logically tell you that the winds are travelling straight because they've just exampled how the wind's curving because you're turning beneath it, aka Coriolis illusion, guys in Discord. That's the only reason Kosho's got to say hurricanes travel straight. Yeah, they don't. But they do in his world if Earth turning beneath them's causing an apparent deflection in them.
I think that the planes flying backwards is copyrighted, though.
Fucking Kosho, much like Zanuck, couldn't spell cat if you spotted them the C and the A. They're fucking retards. Double speaking idiots. Kosho and that they're connected by the lips. I think there's infinite. I think Kosho got the infinite. There's an infinite number of reference frames from Zanuck, moron.
Did you say connected by the lip?
He's just trying to take it into pseudo-Riemannian force space, like everything is straight lines when it's actually curved. It's all nonsense.
Nah, that was just where he had to go because of the beautifully phrased question by Chocolate. Once asked where the inertial reference frame comes in with the turn, there can't be one if you're seeing an apparent drift from the turning reference frame beneath it. So he has to say the wind's travelling straight. That's what he was locked into by Chocolate.
Yeah, I've been catching most of what you guys are talking about. I had to take a few other calls, but when they attribute 15 degree per hour movement of the sun and stars to Earth rotating, they open up a can of worms. It only happens for them when they do that. But if you say the Earth is stationary and the stars are moving, you don't have any problems.
No.
What's up,
that's
man?
the chocolate. The chocolate. What were you talking about? Which argument or what you said you destroyed me?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kosho. But you once declared that the rotating hurricanes were actually going in a straight line. They just appeared to rotate because we were on a rotating reference frame.
It's 100% true that the winds are going in a straight line. And there's no reason for them to travel.
Was it lying, guys?
No reason for them to travel in a circle on their own. So the Earth is rotating. But when they start off their travel, they're going north or south, depending on. So the high pressures are going to go towards the south.
Just say winds all go in straight line.
It's 100% true that the winds are going in a straight line.
And with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal and thanks buttons, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.